All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome.
Use mine.
Welcome to the Monday, March 11th, regular meeting of the Easton Planning and Zoning Board. We are either live and/or recorded on ECAT tonight. So first up, we have an A&R plan for 207-211 Elm Street. Is there anybody here for that?
I don't think they're going to be here for this.
Okay.
It would be Ed.
No, he wasn't planning on coming tonight, and he really didn't need to. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything. Man, this isn't working.
I was not able to not see this plan online. Could you guys see this plan online? It would not load for me.
Elm Street?
There was two of them, but
Yes, I got it to load.
I couldn't-
I actually have it up, I think, if you wanna see it.
Yeah, just I have. No, it's okay. Wayne's got it right here.
Yeah, so it's this lot here, and essentially what they're doing, well, what happened? You know, where the network is funky.
Yes, I've heard that.
Hold on.
It's right here.
Yeah, we'll take the paper one. That's
Sorry.
fine.
This is my grandmother.
Heck.
You can see better everything.
Yep.
I know it was a land swap, so it's.
Yeah, there's two little parcels, there's this, they're giving back this piece and,
Been taken back.
yeah, so
help out the
essentially
garage.
it was, yeah, around the garage.
All right. Stephanie, you have any comments on this?
No, the lots all comply except for lot 3, which is now landlocked. It has some wetlands on it. I did talk to, and that should indicate the upland areas, the contiguous upland area on each of the lots. Can you just check that? Because
Doesn't.
I'll let you.
it doesn't on the
I don't.
online.
Yeah, I didn't see it on that.
Oh,
one,
it
but
doesn't, oh, they added it to
Right,
the,
he was supposed to be adding it.
it does on lot 1. And it does on lot 3,
Right.
but it doesn't on lot 2.
Right, it doesn't on lot 2. Lot 2 is the one. There are wetlands on this, but he's labeled it as not a buildable lot. So I don't think they have the wetland line delineated. They just know that there are wetlands on that
Right.
parcel.
Because that's not required on an A&R.
And I
anyways,
don't, no, it's a requirement of the lot description.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
However, because he's already noted that it's not a developable lot, if they were to come back
There's no issues.
with some kind of condition that they're trying to make it a complying lot, we would need to verify at that point in time.
Well, the only way they'd be able to do it, add it to another lot.
It would, right,
So,
all right, and I'm not sure why they're dividing it off, rather than keeping it with the other lot. Excuse me, there are a lot of people out here, a lot of people talking, and it's making it very difficult to hear inside, so if you can just keep the noise down, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're all set with the A&R. You want to make a motion?
yeah, so, motion to accept the A&R as proposed.
Second.
Further discussion, you mean approve?
Approve, accept, yeah, I mean,
Endorse, vote
yeah, we're not
endorse.
allowed to approve it, right, so.
Endorse, right.
Endorse it, yeah.
All right, there's a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? 3-0. All right, continued public hearing for Lincoln Estates 2. Anybody here?
They are.
Yes. Lincoln Estates 2.
Gray Street. There he is.
No, that's fine. It's all right.
Is there a revised plan with this, or is it the same plan?
There was a revised plan.
Oh, yep.
So who is that noisy group? Are they for us?
I think so.
Oh, for you?
Is it for this?
They're not taking the hint,
It's for 15.
It'd be a record if I have to go up for a third time.
yeah.
What?
I'm making wait outside.
Yeah,
I'll do it. I'll do it this time.
thank you, because they all.
They can fear the fat guy.
Go out there. I really
Hey, excuse me, folks. I don't mean to be anal about it, but this is a public hearing. We have to keep the door open. And all the noise funnels in here. So if you guys want to go downstairs or something, it's the third time. I don't want to come out again, okay? Thanks.
It was put, no, it isn't. It's not put in. Yeah.
Come upstairs.
No, it's not.
That's your boy. Yeah.
That's it? Throw it up?
No, him and 42 other people.
Here, so we don't need that cord.
All right. Hey, I can hear things now.
This is a crazy night. And I still haven't get to the next.
Got dizzy with that authority.
What's that?
I'm dizzy with that authority.
Oh,
And that, it
Over
all
there.
right.
Yeah,
will reach.
long enough.
No, it won't. This one will reach.
Some
Put it down, just wait. I thought they-
nice purple lines on the plan here. Circulation.
So it looks like the water department wants the loop.
Did that work?
Do we have a paper set of this? May I? Just to, instead of trying to go through this slow computer. Thanks.
I'm sure. Yeah, no.
If you like to see, just let me know. I know you have a slightly better technology base
Yeah.
than I do. When you're ready, just grab a mic. Oh. Yeah, grab it.
Oh, it's down in the other room, right?
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hearing me. Walter Hermano, PD, Hermano Consultant Engineers. Here tonight representing Mr. William Adams for 233 Rear Lincoln Street, Lincoln Estates 2. We were before you previously, and we have made revisions to the plan. There were a total of 12 comments from the peer reviewer. Many of them had been addressed to his satisfaction at the prior review. And we've taken to the remaining comments and satisfactorily completed each one of them on the subdivision plan. I'll go through the remaining questions very briefly. We had number 2, there was an indication of the weirs and the elevation of the weirs, and there was a potential, the review engineer thought, to hold back water. The weirs are at an elevation of 206.8, that's where they'll spill over. And along the property line here, we propose an elevation of 206.85. And that will be sufficient to keep the water from backing up onto any abutting properties, because that's one of the objectives that the town has requested us to study. The other was to analyze for and make sure there was no increase in any flooding off-site. And we measured that by peak rate of runoff, and we've kept that neutral. We've increased the impervious on the site with the roadway, but we have proposed, through the addition of grass swales, sediment forebay, and a wet swale, to hold back just enough water, so we'll have our pre-construction runoff equal our post-construction runoff. So we've satisfied the 2 main objectives of the town. And in doing so, we've also treated the total suspended solids, what may come off a portion of the roadway, neighbors in this area, to the maximum extent practicable. What you can't see is that it also affords some treatment for any nutrients that might come off of a roadway, that might come off of a neighboring lawn, for example, fertilizers. So, by offering this treatment train of a grass swale, sediment forebay, and a wet swale, we're accomplishing all of those goals. In addition, we have 2 other sets of 8-inch HDPE piping underneath the proposed roadway. The roadway is going to be elevated. It might come up to a top of about 209, 209.50. The existing grade over here for the unfinished roadway actually creates a bowl effect because it was grubbed out, cleared, and actually taken down lower than the surrounding area. So it has a tendency to hold back water, storm water. The whole area has a tendency to dry up during the drier months. The proposed system will act like the wetlands. The wetlands elevation is about 206. We have, as part of the project, proposed as required by conservation to lower the culvert that is the plug that lets all the water out of the wetlands here. Currently, it's holding back about 4 inches of water. But by lowering it back to the required elevation of 206, you will relieve that small plug effect. So you will have, in effect, a little less water being backed up in the wetlands by properly adjusting the culvert. So that will also help and ensure that there's no backup of water over here, where we have an elevation of 206.8 on top of the weir. When you get down to the culvert, it's lower than that. So the water flows uphill to downhill prior to the project. The water flows from the uphill point downhill after the project. It will not back up onto the neighbor's property. I've gone through numerous calculations, studied it. We looked at a flow through these pipes, including the culvert, that it took the property, the drainage area, well off the boundaries of the property. Roughly an area 5 times greater than what the subject site currently is. And we have 2 lots right here that are proposed at, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, I think they're roughly 6 acres. Each one 6 acres in size, thereabouts.
No.
Oh, that's a total.
6.7 acres for the total site.
A little bit over 3.5.
Yeah, a
for each
little over
lot.
3 acres each.
So to blow the area out 5 times greater, we're looking at a drainage area of 15 acres for each lot, so. It showed through that hypothetical calculation that the pipes would more than adequately handle even an area that large, without backing up water on any of the neighboring properties. So that, essentially, that solves what I believe, the comment number 2 from the reviewer, that was outstanding. Comment number 5, recommended a 12-inch stone diaphragm. That's an item that we've already discussed with the board, and I have you, Mr. Chairman, noted that you're not in favor of the stone diagrams, and I fully concur. They offer a very temporary matter of treatment for solids. They do offer a temporary, and they become a long-term maintenance headache. Trying to enforce it is difficult. And there will not be a great deal of solids coming off of this roadway, because again, this is just a two-lot subdivision. So people coming and going, maybe they'll sand the roadways down a little bit. The solids, I'm not sure where else they're gonna come from, but there's not a great deal of solids to be generated off of this roadway. It's not a throughway, it's not a main street. It's a means of access for two lots. Comment number 8.
I think that was resolved. I think comment 8 was resolved.
Comment 8, cover over the middle pipe has been correct. Yes, you're correct, Stephanie. The reviewer pointed out, and he was right in doing so, previously I had a 12-inch pipe here that didn't have enough cover over it, which is part of the reason why we have peer review. In changing the pipes, I made all of them 8 inches instead of 12, so quickly we were able to pick up an additional 4 inches. But I can assure you the cover is met for that pipe, which is at least a minimum of 12 inches. So 8 was resolved. I think number 9 was referring to a comment later on that you wrote 10, which all talks about a long-term operation and maintenance plan. And as Stephanie points out, rightfully so, in her staff report, most recent, or today's date, the owners of these 2 parcels are responsible for maintaining this roadway. It's gonna be a private roadway. They're also responsible for maintaining their driveways. And that goes with the maintenance that we've listed right here on this sheet, and also on, previously on sheet 2. Frank wrote down that the owners are responsible for the roadway, because it's gonna be private. So it is fully covered on the plan. It should be very clear to anybody desiring to acquire ownership of these 2 lots, that they're responsible both for the roadway, maintaining culverts to ensure that they don't get plugged up. Say you might have some leaves, excess leaves during one year. There's a little bit of maintenance required. The forebay, for example, they have to monitor it maybe once, twice a year. Occasionally, if the sediment gets built up in that area, 3 to 6 inches, it has to be removed. I don't see that happening anytime soon. This is a grass lawn coming this way in a very limited roadway. So the sediment accumulation is gonna be minimal. Long-term, both owners of the property should be able to handle the maintenance required. We have a wet swale proposed. And as the DEP indicates, the wet swale is close to the water table, but there's a reason for that. It's the best application for this project. We have rather high water table throughout the site. We have a limited area to work. But as for the reasons I've noted earlier, we're affording a treatment of water and also a holdback of water temporarily with this system. The last comment was number 12, which included long-term operations and maintenance plan. That's the one you referred to earlier in the review. And as I just pointed out, that's been provided on the plan in 2 different locations. And it clearly indicates that the owners are responsible for the maintenance of the project long-term. Contractor is responsible short-term, but when the title's turned over to the owners, they're responsible for it long-term. So at this time, I believe I've satisfactorily answered all of the reviewers' comments and any comments that the town may have. I also believe I've satisfactorily answered them. Everything I've designed on the plan, I've looked at it many different ways. It was not an easy site, but it is a plan that I endorse with my professional registration, and it meets any applicable guidelines or standards that the state offers for designing these types of treatment systems. That's it
Okay.
for
All set?
comment review, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
As Mr. Hermano pointed out, the peer reviewer Bader did have some recommendations that they made that they felt that if they were followed, that it wouldn't be necessary to have the wet swale, but it did include the stone diaphragm. I think that if the board feels that Mr. Hermano has addressed the issue or potential for off-site migration of stormwater, that the board can vote to support the project. I did leave out of my report, I did mean to mention, in addition to the fact that this is supposed to be a private roadway, which means it will have a homeowners association covenant and recording, which should reference the O&M plan. That plan should probably be in a document form also, because I'm guessing that whoever develops the site will look at the plan, but the homeowners won't be looking at the plan. And
Yeah, you need something to follow the
operations
deed.
and right, so I think a formal operations and maintenance plan document should be required. And I think that was, and then the only other comment I had was related, and I don't think, actually two comments I have. One is the concerns raised by Jack Marsh, the Water Division Operations Manager, regarding the loop system, and also the intent of taking service lines directly off Lincoln Street to service the two parcels. Those were comments he provided. The service line comment he provided in permit eyes, and the comment about the looped water system. And I know you've requested a waiver of that, but I don't know if you've had any conversations with the Water Division.
Okay, hi, may I speak?
Yeah, yell into the microphone. So that
I met with Jack Marsh 3 meetings ago, and I talked to him about that water loop, and he said that water loop is designed for larger subdivisions, and they put it on there as a standard request. We talked about it. He said, what were my plans to supply water to the lots, and I told him I was planning on running copper all the way down the road. He said to me, you can do that, but I would prefer that you run a main down the road and at the straightaway, and put a hydrant at the end of that, and then run your copper lines off of that. He said that way there, he said, you'll ensure they'll have the proper pressure at the houses. He said, and after you guys are long gone, I have to support the lines. And I said I had no problem with that, and we added it to the plan at that time.
Yeah.
So that is on the plan, and I thought that was fully addressed.
Yeah, we have we're showing an 8-inch
Yeah, it's an
water
8-inch
main
line
going all the way to the.
Yeah, and he wanted it, he actually looked at the plan and told me where to put it, so.
I think that helps the superintendent, if I may, Chairman, because the increase of pressure through the 8-inch line going all the way up to the end of the roadway. This is the detail for that, by the way.
Yeah.
Taking it from Lincoln Street and bringing it, I believe it's 16-inch, Frank? Is it
8-inch.
No, but in the street.
16 in the street,
16
yes.
in the street, down to an 8, all the way back here. Putting a fire hydrant inside, between the two lots here, was the best location according to Mr. Marsh. Also, the two taps at this point over here offers the most pressure for both these lots. So why I say it's doing everyone a good service here is because there should be no complaints about any low pressure from any of the two potential proposed homes, excuse me.
Yeah, I can remember 2 or 3 meetings back when you moved, because the hydrant used to be back.
I used to be up here,
Yeah,
yeah.
originally we proposed it up there,
Yes.
yes.
So, if we approve,
I'm fine with that. If
yeah,
Jack
I mean, you can always
is-
circle back with Jack or
Yeah.
something, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
but why would you guys move
Right.
it, right?
Yeah, I think that, and now that.
Because I know that
you
comment referred to
mentioned
8
that-
inches, which this is,
Right.
because it wasn't originally.
Right.
So.
Now that you mention it, I do recall that being discussed in a meeting, but there was so much other conversation, I
good.
think it got lost in the
So,
discussion.
so forgive my ignorance, I don't know if anybody knows this answer, but, because it says just 2 lots, and they say, well, how would you loop it here? What would
Well,
you loop?
that's, right.
You know what I
That's
mean?
the problem, you can't.
I have been told by the
You wouldn't
water,
like run one line and come back.
Or you get like an easement through someone else's property that goes like this back to Lincoln.
Physically
Street.
make a larger
Yeah,
one, right.
yeah.
well, I have been told by the water department on prior projects that a loop is useless unless you can get the connection to the main line at least 300 feet apart. So going up one side of the road and coming back down the other would be an expensive exercise that would not be of any
You have to go
benefit.
across a lot and then
You would
come
have to
over
have
someone
an
else's
easement
yard back
across
to the
someone
road,
else's
right?
property to loop
But
in.
there is boring technology now, you could go under the wetlands.
Yes, there is.
Probably drive up your lot cost a little bit, but, okay, so I just wanna make sure I wasn't missing anything there.
And
So
then
I,
the only other
oh, go ahead,
comment
sorry.
I have is if the hearing closes and the board is voting to approve, they did request a number of waivers, and you wanna make sure that you are
Yeah.
voting to grant those waivers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Environmental impact report, we went through that. Stormwater report, you did that. Solar orientation, you guys okay with waiving the solar orientation?
Yeah.
And I think they addressed
Trees we
that.
talked about, cause there weren't any. Okay, so where did we end up with I thought we stuck with the subdivided property tied to the Massachusetts state.
Yeah,
I thought the
Plain
board did
coordinates
as
system.
I
well.
thought we did.
So we're
too.
staying with that one, right? I think we agreed.
Excuse me, what was that?
The Massachusetts state plane coordinate system,
Okay.
I think, cause
We did, we talked.
I get that it's not fully in use yet, but we thought, well.
So it may be
better
easier, I'll
ways.
just mark these as you.
That's the one I
go
thought,
through.
right? I thought,
that was-
the
that-
board kinda wanted to
yes.
stick with
Right,
that one, I
that's what we
thought.
Yes.
talked about.
And that is 6.7, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
534, list of requested waivers.
534?
Yeah, that's what I've got.
What?
Oh, it's in two places.
Well, it's, yeah,
Oh, two different
or
things.
two different,
Sure, but they're the same item, right?
they
Just,
really are,
just,
yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
those two. Then, 25-foot easement at the end of the turnaround for continuation, yeah, obviously not an issue here. 30-foot right away, same thing, or. Yeah, sidewalk, yeah, we waived the sidewalk and curbing. No room for the sidewalk, no room for the crushed stone. And looped water main, and then installing streetlights, I think we're putting one at each driveway, just the lantern, right, so.
Yep.
So, we're okay with the way, just the 5, 3, 4, and 6, 7.
Right, so
Which
you
is
should
kinda the same
probably
one.
vote not to waive, you should
Yeah.
probably,
Any
the
motion
motion
could
should be waive all
Yeah.
except those two.
But, so other than that, I think, before we ask them if they wanna close, I think we have everything we need, right, you good?
Yes,
All set?
yes.
Yeah, I just had a question about
Oh,
the,
sure.
on the maintenance schedule. Does that
Sure.
include the 4-foot pipes?
The culvert,
Yeah, the culvert.
box culvert,
Mhm.
that's a good question.
I mean, who would be I mean, would the owners someone would be responsible for that?
Actually, that's on that's on one of the lots, that's on the lot to the right, it's not within the roadway. So I
Okay.
believe that would be the owner of that particular lot.
That's a
Well,
good
I mean, I
question.
think that's critical to the drainage system working. I mean, you
Yeah.
talked about how
Yeah.
getting more water to go through that's gonna help all the drainage, so if no one takes care of that thing, then the whole thing sort of backfires.
So that should be a document.
Right, yeah. You should, yeah, clearly state.
Yeah, you just include that in the, for that lot.
Add that.
I'm trying,
What we,
lot
It's not a
5B,
homeowners association, but it should
Well,
be,
either, one or the other. I mean, you could also make both lots, I mean, you could decide how you wanna do that, right? I mean, you could have both lots responsible for that since it's sort of,
On the driveway.
you can't do it in.
yeah, it's tricky though, where it's
Yeah.
inside one lot.
No, I bet.
Everyone
Yes.
else.
Well, what you could do is require that, and we could work on this, to draft a document notifying the owner. I wonder if it could be something that was recorded as well. I can talk to council about that.
what I could add, that's a great point that you mentioned.
You could add it to the operations and maintenance.
Right, these, the O and M is for the stormwater management, we call them best management practices that we've implemented on the project. The culvert was not one of them, but we can add for maintenance and inspections, with my client's permission, we can add the culvert to this document, and the owners are referenced in this document to be responsible for it, so I may be specific to say just the owner of Lot 5B, because it falls on their property. It might
Yeah,
be burdensome. to
Yeah,
put it
I
on
think you,
private.
right, no, I think you could call it up. So you're gonna just submit this to Stephanie, right, the plan, when you have it written?
Mhm.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think that's fine, just word it.
Regarding,
Add that to the lot, yeah.
to make the new owners fully aware of the plan, what was the discussion we just had regarding how to make sure they're aware of that? Was that,
Well, it should be a document that,
Attach it to the deed.
and it should be part, like an attachment to the covenant,
okay, so,
because there needs to be a homeowner's covenant,
Right.
okay. So we can make that part of that
or
document?
part, just part of the covenant,
And
but,
that is a recorded document, correct?
yes.
Right.
Okay, so it would be recorded in the registry under the homeowners association document?
Right.
Okay.
That's what I was imagining, right, yes. And just on the installation of the culvert, I mean, is a as-built sufficient that we can feel it wasn't installed properly, or should like someone be there to watch it go in, or would the engineer certify it, or what's the best way to do that?
They should provide an as-built, they'll need to provide an as-built, they still have to get a permit for work and notice of intent from the Conservation Commission, and
Yes.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
They already know that, and I am sure that the environmental planner will want to be on site or
Okay, right, yes.
thereafter to observe that it was properly.
There'll have to be a certificate of compliance from
Relayed
the
at the prop-
Conservation
yes.
Commission as well.
It would be
But we
as-built,
can
right?
add that as a condition to this as well, so we can do that.
Those are all my comments.
Do you have anything, Wayne?
No, I
No.
don't.
Oh, enjoy yourself. All right, so would you like us to close the public hearing?
Yes, please.
Yes, yeah, definitely, thank you.
Someone care to make that?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All right, motion passes. All right, so now, on to the rest of the special permit. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions or comments? All right. Stephanie, you're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything, board, applicant, so would anybody care to, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the project, with the exception of the requested waivers 5.3.4 and 6.7. And including addition of the culverts to the inspection and maintenance schedule. Do we have any other? That is it.
And documentation, a formal
Oh,
document.
and
of
formal
the-
documentation.
Or incorporating the operation and maintenance plan in the homeowners association
Thank you.
document.
Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't know if it was still going on or
Give everyone
not.
some time.
He was doing the slow roll.
Make sure we didn't miss
It was
anything.
the slow roll, yeah.
We had a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion passes. 3-0.
All right.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Stephanie, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night.
Thanks for working with us on that.
All right. Next up is 50 Washington Street.
No signal, there's no signal to TV.
You're all dressed up tonight. Must be billable.
Are you tired tonight? Okay.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thanks. Yeah, this, I can't get anything on this. I've lost
No,
all my
my,
files.
I
was
have
there.
it, but I can't get it on the
Actually,
TV.
The last one wouldn't rotate the right way. This one's actually
I
working
can't
fine.
get out
so-
of this.
Oh, wow.
Where are the files? Where are the damn files?
Oh, right there, 50 Washington.
I kept doing it for Lincoln Street.
Oh, right, oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
You get it?
Hey, folks.
Hello.
So this looks like just the original.
And we didn't receive anything new.
Okay.
anyway.
All right.
They're presenting.
Because I saw the date on it. And we go,
Yeah, I have them in folders if you guys would like them.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
So, just to get started, folks,
Again, still.
is that close enough? All right, good. Scott Farrier from Holmgren Engineering, here with Julie Cardoza. Julie and another gentleman from my office were here a couple weeks ago with you folks. We had a little bit of feedback and some ideas going back and forth, so we figured where it was just 2 weeks out from the last meeting, instead of coming up with our own design and making some assumptions and going forward and giving the go-ahead for the consultant to start reviewing the project, we'd take up a few more minutes of your time, show you a couple of ideas of what we have and kind of make sure everybody's on the same page before we go full steam into it at this point. So I think with that, Julie was probably a better salesperson than I am on this one, so I will hand it over to her.
Julie Cardoza, I'm the owner of Wagon Tails. So this is option A. Option A, we expanded the front here into having 10 parking spots and a turnaround area right here. It's still gonna be a one-way going out this way. We kept this back, the driveway in the back with Calvin Road. So the important part of this is that the safety of the dogs and my employees driving the vans in and out. So we can keep the employee parking in the front and have the vans just coming in and out in the back here. At night, they'll be parked in the front. We made this 12 feet wide, so we made it smaller, and we'll drive in here. This is where the dogs will drop them off. They go into their play area, we back out, and then go out. The vans come in at 10 a.m., and then at 1 p.m., and then at 4 p.m. And that was the big change here. Is there anything else?
We've also added, with this one here, by narrowing down the driveway, we've added more permeable space. We put in some shrubbery here, and we'll put stone around it so we'll have more drainage. We've narrowed that down a lot. And here we've got the 10 spots, and with snow plowing was a concern. Snow plowing here can come right down front here, and it can also come this way on the end. We've narrowed it down to 12, as Julie said, and this would be just exclusively for drop off of dogs, and leaving, everything else would take place out front. We talked about trash. We put the trash receptacle here, or under the deck, depending on what fits best. I think the main concern that Julie had, if we stuck with just the one entrance, the double entrance on Washington Street, but just that one parking area, just the drop-off in her vans coming in and out off of Washington Street. She kind of has a pretty good system of, getting out, opening the gate, driving into the gate, and then shutting the gate before the dogs get out. But, her fear was if they had it right there, at some point an accident happens, a dog jumps out and scoots across 138. At least this way they're a little bit more of a buffer for it. So we really did try to take into account the concerns that the board had, with any kind of impact on the neighbors, certainly the folks right there at the corner, and just felt like that I guess that small disturbance is, is really a good trade-off. We felt like that was hopefully taking care of all of those issues. And also, this plan here backs the kennels off further away from the abutters.
whereas you'll see in the next plan, where we have everything up front and no driveway, it changes. So this here, we've got space between, we've got a lot of space back here. Trying to keep it as far away from the neighbors as possible.
Okay. You wanna show us the other one and then we can circle back? There you go.
So this one still gives us the two drives off of Washington, the one-way traffic. It gives us 11 spaces, obviously the 7 right there, the angled spaces with the one-way traffic. And then we would still need a few extra spaces, and then also the drop-off pickup area. So that's why we kind of have that little area there. The biggest downside, I think, as far as we're concerned on this one is it forces Julie to kind of have the play areas over in this area. So we would end up with kennels and play areas closer to the residences than on the first plan.
So the hard part with this one too is my vans with the dogs would be driving in the same way that my dog walkers would be coming in to get keys and then going out. So it would be very congested right there in that area.
So your preference is for A?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. The traffic patterns on this one was difficult. We've been brainstorming this for 2 weeks, and right up till 5 o'clock, we were writing it up to clarify everything. My concern with this one was traffic pattern. We've got a one-way going in here. We're going to have a problem here and here, where we've got cross traffic coming out going left, traffic coming up going right. So we've got some confusion here. So these cars here are employees, so that's minimal use in the morning and out in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
The flow of the dogs coming in the back, as opposed to here, minimizes the traffic flow, and it creates less congestion,
Sure.
Less opportunity for accidents, less opportunity for it just becomes
Sure. It works better for you.
a cluster. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there's no way I can read this font.
I know.
I'm not gonna blame my old guy. So I see it looks like it says shrubs, I got the circles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On Plan A.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming the infamous, what do we call it, acoustic fence?
The acoustic
Still-
fence.
Still, that's still gonna be there?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the back, in the conclusion side, it kind of sums it all up. So Julie's concern is safety of the dogs, of course, safety of the neighbors. We don't want a traffic congestion, safety of employees. So when we're comparing A and B, option A eliminates the need for a play area directly against the abutter. So if you look at the two options side by side, so we're eliminating, with option A, we eliminate the kennels being directly behind 18 Kenneth Road, because we don't have a driveway. With A, we have a driveway, so we won't need a kennel there, it'll be down the other side. Behind 18 Kenneth Road, option A presents a limited access driveway, exclusive just for doggy pickup and drop-off, and behind the fence, instead of a kennel as presented in option B. So I'm trying to, when you look at curb appeal, if you're driving down Calvin Road, and with option B, you're going to see a black fence because there's going to be kennels behind it. With option A, you'll see a nice driveway, a fence with shrubbery and stone. So it'll look more residential.
Sure.
As opposed to commercial. And then, so that's the difference there. And then the traffic patterns. I tried to picture ourselves as being neighbors in the area and saying, if I'm pulling out of Calvin Road, going left, and I've got someone pulling out of Wagon Tail going right, there's not a lot of space between the parking, the exit to Wagon Tail and the exit to Calvin Road. So it becomes very confusing. So by having the vans and the employees pulling out that way, we're doubling the confusion. Whereas if we have them using Calvin Road, it's clear visibility when the vans are approaching Calvin Road, and they can see anything coming out to take a left and then go into 138. So having a driveway behind the house just makes a lot more sense. It also helps emergency vehicles, in case we have to put an emergency vehicle back there. Better accessibility for dogs, for loading and unloading the dogs. It's just safer. And it takes the animals away from the property lines, gets them further away.
Any feedback from the board?
I prefer option A.
Yeah, I like option A. Could you repeat again where the dog waste is gonna be stored? I know you said it, I just
Yep,
didn't catch it.
so they're in each play area, and then duty calls comes and picks them up. Every day though, we'll bring them probably right here, next to the deck. So when duty calls, they can just come right and pick it up.
And they do it daily?
Twice a week.
Twice a week, yeah.
Is it an actual duty officer? Sorry, I
I'm sure you see their trucks everywhere.
I've been holding that in for 2 weeks.
And would you sort of light the parking spots in the front, so people can sort of see where they're going, and it's kind of safe at night?
Yeah,
In case
yes.
anyone else is pulling in?
Yep.
Even someone could pull in to turn around. If they
Right.
don't want anything
Yeah.
like that to
Yep.
happen there.
In this plan, we also have, we took into consideration cameras and lighting from our last meeting. And we have piping going out to the kennels, so we'll have cameras, because we like to see, crazy it is, the insurance companies like to see if a dog beats up another dog, the insurance companies like to see, and the owners do like to see what happened. So, yeah, so it's important, and a lot of owners, like their children, it wasn't mine. Mine didn't start that fight. So it's always good to have it on camera, and there'll be lit and cameras out there.
Yeah. During meet and greets too, I bring my iPad and I show them the camera so they can see the dogs playing live, and that kind of avoids them coming in for a tour because then they just see it right then and there on my iPad.
Right.
So you said your hours of operation are till what time at night?
So we're 8:30 to 5. We're there.
So
5.
lighting is
Yeah,
more
we're
like
done
for
by 5.
safety and security surveillance. So it'll be,
But you have to light the whole, I assume if you're videoing it, you have to light the whole pen area, is that right?
Well, the cameras I use actually have a night vision, but I could put a light in there if I needed to.
yeah, we have the ability to do
So
that.
you are or not lighting it? My
We have no- we have
only
no-
comment would be,
Yeah.
are you putting one telephone pole in the middle and
No, no,
Oh,
no.
no.
putting
We-
lights down,
no,
or
no,
or
we-
what do you envision?
We have no need for lighting in the kennel because we're closed at 4 o'clock. So even on the daylight savings time, it's still light out. But we will be putting some kind of lighting out there. And it's going underground and up through a pole.
Well, in the kennel or for the parking lot? I don't think
The
the
parking
kennel
lot,
is.
I'm not, I guess I'm more
We should do that.
concerned
Maybe
about the
you can show
neighbors
us
in the
your proposed
back.
lighting on the kind of.
Well, I mean, we don't
next
need
slide.
lighting in the kennel. That's.
Well, that's what I
for
wasn't
them.
sure.
The
The
'cause
other
it
thing
wasn't-
is,
it-
Okay.
it
yeah,
said-
I don't mean to confuse it, but we're thinking through it as we go. The lighting could also be on the structure, facing out.
Yeah, I mean,
So
just,
so many-
because this is,
So many options.
just remember the
No,
final
because
site
that
plan.
would, you can't
You wouldn't be able to meet
Okay.
dark sky compliance doing that.
All right.
It's too far.
Okay,
Yeah, so just remember, we're gonna want dark sky compliant fixtures and just read the bylaw, just so you,
Okay.
the light wants to stay. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be an issue, but to Wayne's point, yeah, you don't wanna put
You
such a
definitely-
giant light up,
You
cause you're
don't
gonna
want-
keep your light on your property.
Right.
okay.
And you're going to need even, I mean, during the winter hours, even closing at 5, it's going to be dark when people are going out into the
For the
parking
parking
lot.
lot, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't mean this to be, I just, it sounds, you operate until 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
It just seems early considering people's work hours.
Yeah, so because we do all the pickup and drop-offs, we drop them off we drop off between 4 and 5. So people usually get home at like 8 at the latest, and their dogs have been playing all day.
Okay, so
So
they're left
tired.
okay.
Yeah. So we just bring
Yeah,
them.
no
Okay,
clients come here
I
to
get
pick
it.
up,
No,
you guys
no,
deliver.
It's all pick up and drop
Right,
off in advance.
I understood that, I just
Yeah.
felt that,
Yeah.
bring them home, but
They're
they
tired.
don't need
They're
to
very
have,
tired
not
out
like
there.
a child now that, you you
Yeah.
can't get off the bus unless someone's there
Right.
for you.
But daycares are the same way, I mean, you can find a daycare where it's a.
They'll
person
just
that
drop them
they-
off at home and
No,
they'll
no,
go.
no, some daycares might say you have to get your kids by 5. If you
Right,
don't like that,
right.
then there are 100 other
Yeah.
daycares that you can do until 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right. But not ours. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
yeah, and different from a child, a dog you put in a crate.
Right, that's,
Yeah, yeah, and you give
Well,
a bone and a. So,
Let's move this along before,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
just kidding, ECAT.
yeah.
And I do have one other question, Greg, if that's, because I don't think we addressed this at the last meeting. I'm assuming that the veterinary, you talked the veterinary services ancillary.
I don't do veterinary services. Like,
I thought it was
Vet
in
care?
I thought it was in the brief, that the veterinarian.
I transport them to their vet.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
That
don't do
was
anything
not
on the
clear.
site.
I think
Yeah.
in reading it, it appeared that
Okay.
at times, and again, my assumption was, even if that were the case, that it would be only for the pets that you are boarding, not
Yeah,
for drop-bys or.
yeah. We don't do any
Okay,
of
but
that
you
on
don't,
site.
you bring them,
Yeah,
bring them to
we pick them up at their house and bring them, like, if they have a vet appointment, an annual, I'll go with them to their vet visit, if their
Okay.
parents are working, and we bring them home.
Okay,
And you would have a do not enter sign on the, in the appropriate spot on the
Yeah.
front parking lot?
Yep, we would make this a one-way.
So, yeah, so I just want, I appreciate, I think the board, we appreciate, this is a good example of, you guys listen to us. Not that we have all the answers, but listen to our concerns, and I'm glad, I think this still meets the objectives of what you were trying, and I like this plan a lot. I think it's a great compromise where the driveway still suits your needs out back, but it's not giant, and I like how all the vans are out front, away from the neighborhood, so we certainly appreciate you working with us on this, and, so it looks good, and I think we should,
Yeah, I think it
so
looks
now
good.
you're gonna tweak it, and, my only question was gonna be about the, directional signage, which,
And just on the south side of the lot, that's where the saplings are, right?
Right, right?
Yes, yeah, so, and those are all just gonna, that's gonna stay the same, right?
Yes.
Besides the corner where this.
Sure.
oh,
and, oops, I was just going to say, and, the final plan will show snow storage
No
area.
storage. Yes.
Yeah, so,
Much easier in this plan than the previous one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's natural areas for it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
before it was
sense.
started.
so, continue to the next meeting, so give you enough time?
oh, could we open up the conversation to pavement options?
Sure.
With that, we have Anthony, Albert. Albert is from, construction. He's also a civil engineer by degree. And we just, in our process of digging up options, we came across the option of tar, asphalt, versus permeable pavers, and a comparison of how permeable pavers could possibly solve a drainage issue, as opposed to having a huge drainage with a tank. We looked at permeable pavers and said maybe we can eliminate the drain or minimize the drain. Or cost effectiveness, if it's not more cost effective to do permeables with a lesser drain, then we go to an asphalt with the drain. So we're looking at those two options. So I'll let it go to Albert, and,
So I was here last meeting, and I sat in the audience and listened to everybody's concerns. So I had a lot of input too with this plan, not to take Mark and Julie's doing a good job. So my thing is, you talked about asphalt, and you talked about it being commercial, right? And you talked about this kind of being a house that's now in a business zone. That's what I heard last meeting. My idea was if you did a permeable driveway with pavers, it's almost like it's a patio. And it's a small driveway now, condensing it for just the van to go in and out. If you did a permeable system in the back, it's gonna make it look more decorative. When people drive by, they're gonna think it's a backyard. Not gonna have that commercial feel of asphalt. And it again, will help with the drainage, because it's a self-draining system. And with that extra grass area that we're saving now, I don't think there's gonna be minimal runoff. And if the runoff is there, it's gonna go into the lawn. I don't think what's there right now, I don't know if anybody's went and looked at the site. There's a huge hideous concrete pad that they had like a garage there. And it's taken up a good area of this. So this improvement is 1,000 times better than what was there, even putting asphalt there. The permeable system, I tabbed on the 3 different options with permeable pavers. It just gives it a more of a homey feel than the commercial feel. I don't know where your input is on it, but when I was listening to Greg, especially last meeting, you said that the asphalt, and you kept commercial and how it's just black tar, and this gives it more of a patio feel and more like a residential effect.
So you're just talking about the driveway in the back?
In the back, just in the back. So kind of like a patio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, that doesn't really
Fine with me.
matter to me. I mean, I just say, tell your plow guy to lift the plow a little bit, and if you don't, just remember with, with permeable pavement or pavers, if you don't vacuum those every 4 months, you're not gonna get any drainage out of it, which it's not like you have a giant area. It is, once the cracks fill up, then, it is what it is, but, yeah, that's, I mean, I don't,
Well,
I'm fine with that.
and I like permeable paving. I would defer to your engineer to ensure that it will allow you to comply with the stormwater management standards. Yeah.
Yeah, so that analysis has to be,
Yeah, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. I certainly get the aesthetic bit out back, sure, and that's,
Seems like a good application for that product.
yeah, and if it's,
Not to interrupt, now say Scott designs a drainage system for the front, right? So that maintains all the water out front. Because we're taking this massive drainage system that we were supposed to put in the back. And we reduce the size, we make it so it fits whatever the storm wastewater is, whatever that is in town of Easton. And we build that up front, right? And now in the back, the permeable system kind of maintains its own drainage. Right now, I know the big thing I talked to Scott briefly was like the runoff of water from the house, the gutters, and tying that in. So again, it has to be worked out. But I think that from what you guys said, I don't know what you can allow and not allow. But if you could, the permeable system in the back is going to give it a better look.
Yeah, we know all that.
yeah, like
We need your engineer, just
I
like
mean,
she said,
again,
we need your
that's-
engineer to say that it meets the.
we don't get to the town has stormwater management, pretty standard stormwater management.
It is the
Requirements.
state
Yeah,
regulations.
and so that's why he gets the big bucks. And
Right.
so it's I mean I don't think going with those pavers on back is going to cause any issue, obviously. But, I mean, it's not going to make you increase your system.
No, it's gonna,
Right.
no.
But there are
but it
inputs that you
doesn't.
can put into your analysis that the system.
Well, if you're taking out that
Bottom
big,
line is-
But it's not going to
concrete
eliminate
slab,
your system.
No,
but
either.
if he's
doesn't
taking out
eliminate.
the big concrete slab, then
Taking consideration.
you should
Right.
be able to consider that in your calculation, right?
But it doesn't eliminate the drainage system.
Right.
Well, no, because you got the whole front, it needs a
In the
drainage
building.
system,
yeah,
right?
in conversation with Scott, it eliminates the potential of a tank, correct?
One of the
So-
water
So
quality.
we end up with permeables with a leaching field, or pavement with a tank and leaching field. So what we would like to do is compare the two and install the most cost effective.
Sure. No, I understand.
That's what we're asking for.
Whatever, there's so many, it's more than one way to skin a cat, so whatever
Right.
works for you guys.
That's all we're asking for.
Yeah, so that's.
So if the end result is pavement plus a tank is more cost effective, we do that. If permeables minus the tank is more cost effective, we go that route. That's what we're asking for.
Sure, no, absolutely, yeah.
That's it.
All right, so, but I don't know, would we ready to continue to the next meeting?
I think, I mean, it's up to them if
I
you're
mean,
ready.
we-
I think
Yeah, I'm
all
asking the
the,
wrong person.
I-
We've
I
already
think
submitted
about
all our
the-
drainage I mean,
Okay.
we have 100% submission.
Okay,
We just stopped at the point,
of
where
peer
you
review.
received the peer review estimate, and we just said, hold on, there's no sense doing it if we're gonna,
Change
flip
the
around
set, right.
parking and make a major change.
so you want us
so
to
we got-
continue to the next meeting, and then we can always change it if it's not ready? or-
Sure,
Let's
Yeah.
ask about what is the peer review estimate, like, what was it run for a project like this?
I
I,
think it was
We've
2,400, was it?
Conversations about this before, so.
yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
around 2,400. I can't, I
Do
don't
I
know.
need
Right
it?
here. Now
Do
my
I need the
system's
peer
on.
review?
2,400 seems,
That's, you have to talk to the boss lady. No, yeah,
So is that like 10 hours or something like that, or? I'm just trying to-
2750. Actually, with the, what's,
Is peer review mandatory?
yes. Yes.
How long does the peer review take?
It's and I'm sorry, it's a not to exceed 3650. So it's, they get everything they need.
Could you just ask maybe like
The
email a
review
copy of
could
that
be-
to us so we can see what kind
Yes,
of scope they're
Yes.
proposing on project like this?
Yep. and.
It's typically a couple of weeks. We submit
Right.
everything to them, which, we just need to give them the go-ahead, give them the $3,600 check that gets stuck in the account. They review it, usually within a couple of weeks, they get back to me and say, here's our comments, and then we
right.
go back and forth until we get a final blessing from them. So it's
Right,
somewhere
And-
between 2 to 4 weeks typically.
And that's something I absolutely need.
yes,
Yeah, you-
yes.
you need to-
And what will happen is if Depending on how complete the information is that's provided up front, that review could take less time than what they've projected.
Okay.
So,
And what they'll do initially is look at what's been submitted, get back to Scott, let him know if there's additional information they need to complete their review. If he provides everything they need, again, it goes that much smoother and faster.
so to clarify the process, after this meeting, we determine which is better, permeables or paving. Scott does the site work, then it goes to peer review, then it comes back, or do we meet again between that?
You don't need to meet again between that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
want to
you
be
don't
back
need to
here
come
until
back.
we
You
get
don't
peer
need
review
to-
and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
That way
Like
we can
seeing
try to wrap
Scott,
it
you
up.
don't need to pay him to come
Not
back.
that much.
and once peer review is done, you guys put your blessing on it, and we go to town.
Well, hopefully we put our blessing on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what peer review says, right? But if
Yeah.
everything jives and, you know, I mean, this is it's pretty simple, so it shouldn't be, hopefully it won't be too crazy. So we'll continue for 2 weeks and
Sure.
then just bump it out if we have to? 'Cause it's
Yeah,
not,
that'd be
probably
great.
won't be ready in 2 weeks, but
Thank
you
you.
never know, right? So somebody want to make a motion to the 25th?
I'll make
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll make a motion to continue to the 25th. Just to throw in my 2 cents on the peer review thing, review the scope of work and make sure you're in agreement with it. And instead, you know, just, and if you're not for some reason, contact Stephanie and let her know. And also, you might want to just make sure you're on the same page as far as the permit will, you know, with the review engineer, so you don't get down that path and then find out you've made an assumption that they don't agree with.
Yeah, there's engineering standards that we have to meet
But
and that
there's-
they're looking for, so we're gonna give them what the typical engineering standards are and everything, make sure
well-
it conforms to stormwater guidelines, so.
There's more disagreement than you'd expect in some of these things, so. That's all.
Well, that is the longest motion.
I'm sorry about that,
We've ever
but
had.
I just wanted to.
I think we'll just condense that to the
Yeah, we'll
first
condense
sentence.
that down to.
If you can remember it, would you care to second that?
Second.
Any further discussion besides Wayne? No. All those in favor? Boom, great. Thanks. And again, we appreciate you working with us, guys. All right, next up is 250 Foundry Street. 250 Foundry Street, Southeastern Regional. I'll give you a super quick glass of water.
Thank you. Do you want to keep it? Or?
I'm very familiar with I'm very familiar with the product.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. See you later.
Who? I'm the solar guy.
Solar guy, yep.
And I was completing my report right up until 5:30 tonight, so
Oh, no problem.
there's a copy for you, Craig.
Perfect.
The strange thing is that I walked down railroad tracks, behind the Reno for the first time in maybe like 20 years. And I never even realized it because why is the road down there? Oh,
It's the,
I've never
right,
been
right
back-
way,
I've
yeah.
never been back
You
there.
realize it wasn't,
I hadn't ridden my bike, I was probably rode my bike back when I was like 15 or something, I was like, that's.
Yeah.
I randomly thought I'd just go for a walk back there, even before this was on the agenda.
So my question for you is, how do these solar panels work if they're sloping north on the flat ones?
Yeah, so they're actually, well, I'll take a
So
step.
I was just, I was looking at this section and I was like,
Gotcha. Well, I'll take a step back. I'll introduce myself.
yeah, I'm just kidding you. I was
No
waiting
problem.
for him to show up anyway. So.
Actually, still work though. It's amazing technology.
Yeah.
Just not as well as if you face them south. But I'm Craig Dwyer. I'm with Terawatt. I'm representing Green Street Power Partners and Scott Kerner, the project applicant here. Instead of getting everything hooked up to the audio visual, you guys can pass around my laptop and take a look at some of the pictures here. But this is a solar parking canopy similar to Stonehill College that is for Southeastern Regional VOCHEC at 250 Foundry Street. We still have a couple things in the works. We're uploading our long-term SWIP right now, which has to go through peer review. So that's still in process. We're still completing the long-term SWIP, and I believe Stephanie's getting the quote to have that peer reviewed as well from the third-party engineers. But in the meantime, wanted to get before you guys to introduce the project. This has been in the works a long time. We've had some regulation changes in the state of Massachusetts and our ability to develop projects like this. Today, where we are, the program's opened up. We can move forward with this project. We'd like to build this summer, if possible. What we are running into on our original designs are in the bylaws currently. We have, this is System B, and this is System A, and I'll take you guys through a couple pictures here. This is coming down the west side of Foundry Street if you're heading east. So the other system is well back from the road. There isn't any issue, but we're following, this is a parking canopy that's following the rules of a large ground-mounted solar photovoltaic solar farm. So we've complied with all bylaws in the site plan, except for the setback here that the engineers put in place. We've since taken this array out in our most recent site plan, but wanted to present it to the board for review and comments to see if seeking a variance was necessary, given that the posts start, just 25 feet back from the road, but it is over paved area. The current bylaws show 100-foot setbacks for large photovoltaic solar farms. However, in this case, we're dealing with parking canopy and just concrete posts. I'll show you guys a few of the other pictures, and happy to open it up for discussion. Again, we have two systems, one in the bus lot over here. This one is a 77-foot setback from the road at the edge of the array, but 100-foot setback at the post. This one here is the one in question. As it's currently shown here, we're 25-foot setback from the road. We've since removed this from the site plan per some recommendations, and you're looking at this one here, which is setback 56 feet from the road.
When you say the road, you mean the edge of the pavement or the road easement?
Pardon me, the road easement.
Okay, right.
Yeah, sorry about that. The property line.
Yep, gotcha.
I'll take you guys through a couple other images. That's the System B down here in the school lot, in the bus lot rather. So, but I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I think the biggest visual impact in question is probably, yeah, it would be this view coming up on Foundry Street. Yeah. So it's the question of whether we would have, how close we're allowed to go to the property line in that front section. Some of the reasons for siting here, we are, with the new SMART program in Massachusetts, all the electricity is exported back to the grid, so we need to connect at the point of distribution at the road. In order to do that, there are some lots available, further back in the school. Unfortunately, the cost to interconnect to the electrical infrastructure, to the distribution infrastructure at the road, makes the project cost prohibitive, and the economics don't work for Southeastern Regional VOTEC and the project economics.
So the setback per zoning is what?
It's 100 feet from the front property line. So the front yard setback is 100 feet, the side setbacks are 75 feet. One of the, and I think the board will understand this, this complex is comprised of 3 parcels. And so the parking lot actually overlaps the westerly property line, and the second array that on the easterly side is less than 75 feet from that other property line. So I think the board would be justified in considering it as one parcel. But and the concern I have, and I picked up on this today when I was looking at this, is the chain link fence. along the front, presumably to, right? That's a
Doesn't that
change?
exist?
That,
Oh,
That doesn't exist. Oh,
No.
there's a
One does
split-
down
There's
by
a
the
split rail.
fields.
There's something by the field, right?
There's
Isn't
a
there
chain
something
link
right
fence
there?
where those practice fields are.
But you mean along the
right,
road,
but
or-
not,
yeah.
not along this section.
Right, not up in here.
And I
Oh,
think that
okay.
really
It's really hard to tell.
changes
So-
the,
So where does the chain link stops
they're
at the
proposing,
edge of the, currently it stops
Right.
right
I
here,
think it
right?
stops there.
And they're proposing to extend it further down.
oh, there, it exists along the fields?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
they-
there is.
the
a-
ones in
Okay,
practice
because it
fields,
looks
yeah.
like right, in conjunction with the fields.
yeah, the fencing
Yes.
that we'll be adding, so that's I guess maybe a depiction that he brightened the picture a little bit of the existing fence there. I think it blends into the
So
background a
you'd be
little.
proposing a different fence line?
We're proposing a wooden fence.
Yeah,
that
I
would-
think that makes a big difference. It looks,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, where it is with the fields, the visual is those fields, it's a sports complex.
Right.
You would expect to have some kind of
you kind of need it.
barrier, but
yeah.
when you extend it beyond that, it starts to change the character, that this is a school and
Totally
as opposed to
agree.
some other type of institution.
And, parking canopies traditionally, if this is a ground-mounted solar project, it's chain link fencing is pretty standard, but when it's canopies and it's an existing lot, this isn't something that's fenced in, really. We added the wooden fence for curb appeal in front of the electrical equipment there.
I still think you'd have to go in front of the
Well, I was gonna say,
ZBA.
we can't,
Yeah.
I mean, it
don't
has to
see
go for
what-
variance, and,
Yeah.
and especially, and you know what, first of all, because we can't waive, we
There
can't
is
waive
no
structures.
there is no provision for waivers in.
Right, and well, we can't, I mean, it's
Yeah.
a zoning bylaw, and especially, when you think of, right directly across the street is a residential neighborhood, which is they are now starting a, formation of a local historic district there. So, and, if we were to, we can't, but if we were to deny the folks a public hearing process, site plan review, there's no abutters notified, and this is like, when I first looked at this, I said, wow, and just it's so close to the road, and Stonehill has one, but no one sees it, it's
Sure.
5 miles
Yeah,
back, but certainly, I would be interested in hearing what the neighbors have to say when it goes to a variance, and we can't waive it, you can't. So
Yeah, I mean, even the bylaw says that, every abutting property shall be visually screened from the project. I mean,
Is-
right, yeah, so-
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why, at least, again, I wasn't expecting a site plan endorsement at this meeting or anything. Wanted to introduce myself and the project, talk through it, but I think there's a little bit of, there's a difference between a large ground-mounted solar farm that's, chain link fenced in with thousands of panels compared to an accessory structure in an existing parking lot.
But this is this is still a large, this qualifies as a large scale.
It qualifies as large scale. It's larger than 250 kW.
And it's not a municipal facility because it's a
No.
state county facility? Or because a private company is gonna
It's a private, well,
build something
Private
on that
company,
property?
private company ownership, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's
Yes.
interesting when you think about that.
Yes.
I mean, so that would be say the town of Easton decided they want to put a solar field somewhere on their property and then lease it to another company. So then you couldn't say, well, we don't have to go through site plan review because we're the town, but then you say, well, you do because you're just leasing a private company to build that property.
No solar panels on the rockery.
Right, yeah.
But that's, you still have to go to a variance.
Doesn't have much to do with this
It doesn't-
anyways, but
you still have to
just,
go for a variance.
Yeah.
right, the right, the town's
So-
not
But if we
exempt.
decide to
It
do that at
says-
the high school and they leased it out, they would have to go through this exact same process at the Marine sites. By that logic of where we got the site plan review on this in the first place.
That's a good, I'm not going
Yeah.
to
No,
pretend I know
I'm
the
just
answer
kinda
to that
thinking things out
question,
because
yeah,
what we say here could happen
Right.
at a school right down the road.
Hey, you're right.
right. Did the board review the Prospect Street solar farm?
Yeah.
The that was, So that was the same, that's municipal
Well, even in
property,
Stoneham,
but it's a
we're in
private,
Stoneham.
well, right,
Yeah.
but that's
Both
not,
of the ones at Stoneham.
yeah,
Oh,
Stonehill's,
right, right.
Stonehill's a private college though,
And,
but,
and regardless too,
Yes.
in 235-49, it still says that owned operator developed on behalf of the town of Easton, or as of right, without site plan review, but still must meet the other requirements of this section, which would include the 100-foot setback. So, I guess what I'm getting from the conversation is that in order to keep the project like arranged as it currently is, we would need a variance.
Yeah.
Is that the only path forward?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the only way to get around.
I mean, town council's coming in tomorrow, I can ask.
Right, if you
But I
want-
don't think there's,
We have
I
no
don't think
mechanism.
there,
It's
I
not
don't
like we
think
have a
there, that's
We don't have a
right.
special permit
But
for.
That's
in general,
right.
if you wanna build like
Right.
a structure closer to the property line, then
Right.
Yeah.
bylaw allows, that doesn't really, that's not really, we don't give that variance. You know?
Right.
And I
No, I
think-
understand.
I mean, honestly, I know sometimes sometimes we all hate regulation, or regulation serves a purpose. I think here's an example where it serves a purpose. Because I think it would be, not that some people may, hey, this is fine, but, if I lived across the street, I'd wanna see renderings of what that looked like from those 4, 5, 6 houses right there. The bird's eye is fine, but no one's ever gonna see it that way.
Right.
Or even when I see it from my second bedroom kind of thing, because then you can, because there is and a proponent could say, well, Southeastern being a tech school there's a plethora of different buildings out there, different roofing types for demonstration. And all the reasons we wanted to be green in town. Solar's not bad. Right. I mean, but I'm just saying here, okay. And yeah, I mean, I think, is the project not viable if the units that are within 100 feet are limited?
Yeah. So if we go to 100 feet and have to cut out this array, I think the deal will probably fall apart from an economic standpoint.
Because the buses are too far away, like to put one over the buses.
Yeah, so the bus lot isn't available to us here. We had to stay back from wetlands over here, but the bigger issue, you say regulation on the local level. We deal kind of on two sides, regulation on the local level, but also regulation from the utility standpoint. And from a utility standpoint, these are on two separate parcels, so they're considered two separate project applications. So if we have to tailor this project size back 75%, it delays the project, could delay this project 4 to 6 months, even if you guys said yes today to that. And same thing goes over here. If we increase this project size by, the panels that we're missing over here, National Grid could throw the whole thing back into a 6 to 12 month study that could set us back.
So can we just talk a minute about the wetlands? You and I talked about
Yep.
this when you
Runoff.
were in, Craig.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I understand that avoiding the wetlands means you avoid having to go to the Conservation Commission for permitting.
Correct, yes.
However, again, stormwater review is done jointly, so
Yep.
if you need if you're going to the Conservation Commission and filing an NOI, the stormwater review will be done once, so you're not incurring double expense there.
Okay.
It's all paved area already.
Over here, you're saying if we
Right,
could increase that
right.
project size.
So I don't see
Does it have
that.
to go to stormwater? And does it really have to stay within the 100-foot
Change
buffer?
it.
The stormwater requirements, because this would be considered redevelopment, it's not to the standard of full stormwater compliance. They
But
don't
they're
have to
putting, like,
comply with every
footings in, so
standard.
they
They have
go
to make sure that
conservation,
they're,
probably, yeah.
right, and they have to make sure that the water coming off is flowing into probably into the existing system. I doubt that it won't increase volume, it may increase velocity. That needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
the water's gonna be
so-
cleaner than coming off the parking lot.
Yeah,
It's gonna.
right,
it's
so
gonna
they
be
won't
cleaner,
have to do
you know?
additional treatment. The stormwater review really should be
Would it be
very
troublesome to go
straightforward.
into the
My-
100-foot?
My point, that's my point, because it's already paved
Exactly.
area.
It's a
You're not
much-
I don't
chasing
It's a
see
much
this-
better solution.
Yeah.
to-
So if you lost
It's
that stuff.
extra, it's an extra permit, you have to go,
Yeah, that,
but I don't
That's
see
not pointless.
why the project would not, and I don't see it as a several meetings to get to closure. I think
Yeah.
No, I mean, Stonehill would
And
work.
it's definitely a project that would be in the benefit of the public at large.
Yeah.
What about the side and rear setbacks? Those are fine.
I'm sorry, what was
The
that?
side and rear setbacks.
Yeah, side and
Yeah, I
rear
thought so.
setbacks aren't in question here. It's, just that main front section I wanted, some input on. Yeah, we can, so, yeah, I mean, you're saying if we could expand the project out here, but take it back into the 100 feet here or closer to would be the preference.
I think, and
I think that would be the easier
think so.
path.
Yeah,
Because I can't speak obviously for the residents there, but
yeah,
this we know, I mean, this is down.
that's
So
the
even though
way.
That's
yeah.
right, that's
Even though that's
right.
within the 100, still has to be a variance.
We're
but
close.
I don't think people can have an issue with it. This one's kind of right on top.
Right.
Yeah.
I look and I think what we're all saying, I mean, I'm like this, why can't you just get that here and here? Probably
Yeah.
even more. Because it's already pavement versus, and
Right.
right, Stephanie brings up a good point about flow, but
Much
it's,
better
you're not improving, I mean, you're not increasing impervious area. You're just.
Right,
Yeah,
And that might, you might even get more, get a little more juice.
maybe.
Just a thought, but.
No,
but
I
we
gotcha.
can't waive setbacks,
Understood.
Sometimes we wish we could, but.
Just on the transformers or whatever those things are, can you sort of
Yeah,
screen
sure.
those? Screen those somehow wherever
Yep.
they end up if they're right in the view.
So,
you do have a
yeah, you can see one
view that showed,
here, and I'll show you.
you
I'll show
had a
you
front
clo-
view, I
I'll
think, in the
yeah.
renderings.
Oh, right there, yeah, I get you.
That, they go right there, but we're very careful with the. Pardon me.
So you're putting the wooden fence around both of them, or just the one?
So yeah, just the wooden fence around one. You can see it there as
Oh,
well.
Yeah, I get you.
Yep, it's there down in front, but we do is, kind of a row of Leyland cypress around it to completely encase it. So it's fenced in, but then there are trees that go around the outside. So really just,
Can you use cedar? It is like a little cedar swamp, right?
yes, we could.
Do you know how hard it is to replicate?
Our director
a
of construction is,
It's almost
yeah.
impossible.
Our director of construction's out for family issues. His wife's having a baby pretty soon, so he couldn't attend tonight. But he'll be with me. Yeah, he'll be with me at the next meeting. He used to own a landscaping company. So.
That's how woodwork
But yeah,
gets
here's the
started.
other one. You can see here. That one's fenced in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they're pretty
You got any
subtle.
jokes for that one? I like the comedy. I love the levity.
All right.
That's
So
I'm joking about it, not.
all right. Well, I think I think I know what we have to do. Maybe.
We didn't make your night miserable.
No,
And my
think-
suggestion
Another
would
day.
be that, if you're going that avenue, which again, and we talked about
Yeah, I
this
know we
when
did.
you were,
I know.
is to meet with Andrea,
Yep.
the environmental planner. I think you've met, and, just go through it, and she can give you guidance.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll take it from there. We'll make some progress on this and hopefully be back before you guys shortly to
Great.
discuss where we're at.
Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
661 Washington. Anybody here? No, nothing. We're just gonna chill.
Oh, sir.
Yeah, no, not yet.
And I don't have
I have to. So, while everybody, I just wanna, so this is a special permit, as we know, and we also know we have 2 members of our board missing tonight. Not that we plan to vote tonight, because we'd need a supermajority for any project to approve, which besides the board, we would need 4.
We're not
So-
voting?
Not tonight, no, sorry. So,
Yeah, we don't have.
So, before we open the public hearing, and I know we talked about, I just want for the record, our 2 members that are missing, we will request that they watch this meeting on TV. I'm sure they will.
you.
Fill out and sign their, I did it at home. Fill out, they haven't changed it since what was online.
We just
right?
changed it.
Yeah. They'll do their Mullen report.
Muller.
Going for,
I think that's Muller,
that's what I
not
said?
Muller.
No, I said, I said Mullen.
Muller.
So, so that being said, so once, assuming that's how that goes down, each of those members will only be able to miss 1 meeting after that, or won't be able to miss any meetings after that, I'm sorry. So, we may, and I know one of our members is going through a pretty intense licensure exam this coming period, so there may be need to continue at some point, just so that we can, yeah, well, hopefully not, but, and I'm gonna talk to both members. One was a pre-planned vacation, so I don't expect any more issues there, but just wanted to make that, just wanted to put that on the record so we all understood. And with that, so you still want us to open the public hearing?
We do. We just want to
Okay.
put some introductory notes on.
Okay, well, why don't we open the public hearing, then I'll let you wait.
What an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, Town of Easton, notice of public hearing. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 41, Section 81-T MGL, the Easton Planning and Zoning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 11th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. in the Mary Connolly Meeting Room, Easton Town Offices, 136 Elm Street, North Easton, Massachusetts, on the application received from Full Circle Development LLC for a special permit mixed use under Easton Code Book Chapter 235 zoning, 235 to 56 and Appendix A5 special permit mixed use to allow a development that includes primary non-residential and primary residential uses on the same site at 661 Washington Street, Easton, Massachusetts. Assessors map 36U, lot 102. A copy of the application and plan may be inspected at the Planning and Economic Development Office, 136 Elm Street, Northeastern Massachusetts, during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed application and plan should appear at the time and place designated for the public hearing. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. Gregory Strange, Chair.
Thank you. So, just before you start, so the process, couple things. First, the process, the applicant will present, then we'll open it up to, the town planner, planning director, and the board for any questions, then we'll throw it out to the public. And just for board members, I'm not sure if we've talked about this or not, as we know, under this special permit in this district, we also have the responsibility of architectural approval of the exterior. However, we've had some discussions with the team going up, and they had requested that we get going on the site plan for reasons so they could start working utilities and filing for things of that nature. And then a little later, this spring, this summer, whenever, we'll get going on the architectural. So assuming we get to an approval on the site plan at some point, it will be, it'll stipulate that, no construction will start, no permitting of the building will
Right.
start till approval by the board, so.
So
anyways.
I think the thinking was that the board could do this like they did Queesit Commons, where you approve a master plan for the overall site design and layout and construction, utilities, and then they would come back for the architectural and any changes that they might have been faced with the actual construction design.
All right,
I think that's fair.
floor is yours.
Thank you, board members, members of the public. This is an exciting time for the redevelopment of a property that has been in a bit of disrepair for a period of time. We really believe that this is going to be a catalyst for this entire area of growth. We believe it's going to serve the community as a meeting spot. We believe it's going to meet a lot of needs for the people of Southeast and Central Easton, and we're going to afford an awful lot of opportunities for folks to get out, enjoy the area. This is going to be a mixed-use property, so there's going to be a lot of activity there. It's not going to be a stationary, a stagnant area. It's going to be vibrant, we hope, from very early in the morning till late at night. We hoped that we will live in great concert with the folks on Depot Street, understanding that the frontage is on Washington. We want to respect our neighbors. We've done, I think, an admirable job of doing that. I'm glad you pointed out that the effect of this, at least initially, is to try to get the site plan established so we can start making some headway in the very near future relative to the utility companies. Everybody knows how long they take to mobilize in order to deal with utility issues and planning of that sort. And our goal here tonight is to get that ball rolling. In terms of the status of the property, I think all of you, anybody who lives in Easton knows that the property is pretty much fallow at this point in time. There's one use. And we hope to incorporate that use in the new, in the brand-new building. Right now, the tenant mix is completely unknown, but what we do know about it is the front two buildings are going to be facing Washington Street. There'll be an office/commercial space that is gonna face Depot Street, pretty much in the place that the white building currently exists. And then there's existing home that will be dealt with in due course, will be repaired, remedied, rehabilitated, and used for housing in some capacity. One of the great features of this, however, is the fact that we're gonna have a housing component to the rear of the facility. And that is gonna have a mix of, 1-2 bedrooms, and access to, we hope, some walking trails and Settlers Pond. That's gonna make it a very desirable place to inhabit, but also that will cause the inflow of traffic, pedestrian traffic, to get to the various commercial and residential, or commercial and office uses within the building itself. There's potential for 5 more units of housing in the commercial office space up in front of, in the bigger buildings themselves too. So we're looking for this as a vital aspect to the redevelopment of Southeast in this area of town. We're very hopeful that this is going to drive a lot of related investment in the area, and that we can incorporate the great things about Easton and Southeastern into this particular project, so that we can benefit from the history, the infrastructure that's presently there, and do the things that are necessary to move this project forward and benefit everybody, including the uses that Southeastern has long deserved. So the purpose of this meeting is just to bring to the attention the initial plans. We worked very diligently with this board. We appreciate this board's efforts in a cooperative manner to get to this point. We've dealt with the bylaw. Since the bylaw has been drafted and passed, we've dealt with conforming the plans to the bylaw. We think we fit neatly within the bylaw. We've tried to be mindful of the fact that the bylaw was constructed for a specific purpose, and we think we've achieved that purpose. We are in the midst of peer review with Woodard & Curran. In fact, we're kind of in the middle of that, where we're waiting their comments, Scott, this week. We're gonna get some comments back on Wednesday and hopefully move down the road with them. The purpose is just simply to introduce the project to this board, get some initial reaction, hear from our neighbors, and to the extent that we can, try to learn from this project and start jump-starting it so we can get moving on it and benefit ourselves and the people of Easton in the very near future.
Okay. You gonna present any parts of the plan, or?
Well, we can.
You don't have to, I just didn't,
Yeah, I
I
think
didn't
we'd
want
like
there to be
to,
an awkward silence.
no, there was, but I thought he was just catching his breath, so.
Yeah, sure.
So just before the meeting, we actually met with a lot of the abutters and went through a lot of the plans. I'm sure they have some additional questions for the board. But if they'd like us to walk through it again,
Sure.
we can. So it's really up to you guys if you want the engineer to go through the plans one more time. Would you like him to do that in the hearing, or would you like?
You know, it might not be a bad idea for the folks at home, if you don't mind,
That's
just,
a great
you
point.
know,
Yeah, that's a great point.
Sure.
Sure. Well, I'll get up, Mr. Chairman. Scott Farrier from Holmgren Engineering. So just to add on to what Paul said, the first and really biggest part of what we need to do are the utilities to get into the site. So the first thing is the sewer component. There's been a lot of construction further north on Washington Street at County Lane. With that sewer construction, we are bringing the sewer south down Washington Street. Mr. Walsh is making that part of this project, bringing it down on Washington Street on private property, and then we'll cross Washington Street roughly at the front corner of our property to provide sewer for our entire project. So the project will tie into the town's sewer system. We have water on both streets that we're looking to tie into. All the other utilities, electric, gas, water, everything else is available on both Depot and Washington Street. Really the biggest part of our design and the biggest part of the town's consultant is the drainage on site. So As Paul said, we've submitted all of our drainage calculations, all our final plans. We do have a review done by Woodward and Curran already that we got last week. We don't have any major issues with anything they came up with for comments. We in fact have a meeting with them scheduled Wednesday as part of their normal office hours here at Town Hall, just to go over everything with them, just to make sure we're all on the same pages before we finalize our revisions. So just to speak to it in general terms, it's really your typical parking lot situation. We have a series of catch basins tying into manholes. The manholes then discharge into water quality tanks, and we have a series of subsurface drainage systems. We have tried to incorporate some green design elements as best we could. We have some wet basins. We have an area over in here where we would have some vegetation, some vegetated swales, things like that. So we're trying to be cognizant of that as much as we can and incorporate the green part of things, just so it's not a giant sea of asphalt. So like I said, we're well into that process with Woodward and Curran, and certainly by our next meeting with you folks, whenever that is, we figure we should have everything hashed out with them as far as that drainage goes. We do have 2 points of access into the property. We have off of Washington Street, pretty much right in the middle of the property. We have 3 lanes. We have 1 entrance and then 2 exits. 1 to go south on Washington, 1 to go north on Washington, and then over roughly in the area of the existing driveway on Depot Street, we also have a roadway entering in that area. So really, that's quick, down and dirty for a pretty big project, but I'm sure there's a lot more questions we can answer directly from you folks instead of me rambling on.
Stephanie, do you want to start, or?
I don't have any comments at this point. I've not had a chance to really look at this in detail.
Okay. Wayne or Peter, either one of you guys? Wayne or Peter, I said that right.
Yeah, said it right.
It's been a long week.
Go ahead, man.
We're gonna need a little bit of time to.
You don't have to say anything now.
No, the light fixtures, I looked at the photometric and it was a little difficult to determine where the light fixtures were on the photometric. I think they're on the site plan. Do they match? Yeah. So the fixture you're proposing to supply is really tough to read. It's on the photometric plan. Can you provide us a separate cut or something on that fixture, just so we can see what those look like? The print it's almost black. It's really tough to tell. The last sheet.
Yep.
I see that fixture, but that
Right.
doesn't appear to be the fixture that is
That's more of the-
predominant.
Right, that's the decorative light pole more in the walking areas.
Yeah, so those
Yeah, that's
fixtures
not
there,
a-
could you just provide us with separate cuts or legible
I can,
cuts of those
yeah, that's kind
fixtures?
of, yeah, even standing right up against it, it's kind of hard to read, so I can get you better
Yeah.
copies of that, for sure.
Okay.
And you know, we can highlight on this plan exactly where the
Yeah,
lights
just
are.
show us
Yeah.
where they are.
Sure. Yep.
Because they're marked, but they actually don't show up in the plan. I
Yeah.
assume they're.
Yep, we can take care of that.
That's a minor thing. I'm sorry to focus on it. It's just something that jumped out at me.
I mean, it's, you know, and they're, you know, pretty much a standard light, 20 feet high, you know, down facing, so, to comply with all the lighting requirements, but we'll get you more info on that. That'll be easier to follow.
Yeah, we want to be, careful to make sure that whatever we put in is not disruptive to any of the neighboring properties. As far as the traffic flow on the site, I think this works better than what I've seen previously. I don't know. Essentially, your site is now separated from the service station, right? So
Right, it is.
you're just gonna have a little landscape
Right.
in there between
Yep,
you
just a
and
little
that.
bit of a landscape buffer. They'll maintain their, I guess their 2 curb cuts off of Washington Street, right in these areas. So those will stay the way they are currently.
Okay. And then, no issues with the state as far as taking a left turn out of the, on the Washington Street entrance?
We are in the process of completing a traffic analysis, so we've contracted with somebody to do that. They're working on it. Once we get further along with you folks, we'll file with MassDOT at that point, both for utility permits and for road opening permits. So, we don't think so, but
You're currently doing, currently you take a left off the property. so
in a
you
whole
didn't-
bunch of
It's not
different
gonna
places.
change.
Right, right.
So,
This obviously works a little better, cause everything is focused on this one point as opposed to the
yeah,
giant curb
and you're
cuts that
far
you have
enough
to
away
follow.
from,
700-foot curb cut.
you're far enough away from the corner of Depot Street where I think it's,
Yeah.
seems reasonable to me anyways. But, how tall, how many stories is the building for?
Building 4 is 3 stories.
Is it labeled on there? I didn't,
I don't think it is labeled.
that's why I was,
Yeah, no, it's not.
okay, you might wanna add that to the plan. So it's 3
Just to
stories,
clarify it, sure, we can do
Yeah.
that.
and there's,
The
no
other
basement,
buildings,
is there a basement storage level or anything like that, or is it slab on grade, or?
we really haven't got that far into where, the exact design of it at that
Okay,
point.
but it's, I guess, just trying to get a picture of how high, you'll, obviously, we'll wanna know what the heights of the buildings
Yep.
are and things like that as we move forward.
I think the bylaw allows 4 stories, so we're,
Sure,
keeping it
but I mean,
short of
just
that.
as far as understanding the whole project. we
General
wanna know
height,
what the
yep.
heights are. But I guess that's all I have.
Yeah, so
initially.
that one's 3, building 1 is 2 floors, building 2, I'm sorry, is primarily 2 floors, but there'll be a 3rd floor,
For some
component to it,
apartments, yeah.
right. And then just 2 stories for the building 3 on the Depot Street side, so.
Yeah, so the possibility of underground parking on building 4, that's not being contemplated. And it was briefly mentioned at the beginning, but you mentioned the test pits, et cetera, or maybe it's expensive.
I don't think we're
No.
looking at it at this point, we came up with, I think at the time we were kind of questioning whether or not we're gonna be able to meet the parking guidelines, the zoning requirements, and, it requires 173, and we came up with 174, so, we kind of eliminated that thought from our process at that point.
You sort of maybe just I know that it might be sort of like a, shared parking, but which parking lots,
Well, it is, yeah, we've talked about that, internally a lot, is, a lot of the property is, has different times where they'll need the parking. Obviously, the residents need their parking, the retail spaces, the office spaces, is more of a daytime, where the restaurants will be more of a nighttime, so, we figuring this parking here and right in front of the building will be dedicated for the residential building back there, building number 4. The rest of it is, we've kind of gotta work out whatever we end up with the tenants and kind of try to come up with a dedicated, parking layout per use. So it's really kind of up in the air except for that residential, spot right in this area. It will definitely be for the residential property.
Then on the street side, that's really less of in front of the building, it's less of a sidewalk, it's more of a just the front of the building area, right?
Yep, and, well, again, part of the whole Queesit Brook, the Queesit development area is, making everything walkable, so, we've gotta have a way to get the people off of Washington Street sidewalk onto the property, right, exactly, so that's just getting them there. We envision having a couple of, main door entrances there in the front, overlooking Washington Street that way, so.
Yeah, and then what's the idea for the circle thing in the middle then?
Well, a couple of things, just, aesthetically, we figured it would kind of break up that sea of paving.
Not a big shovel.
Yeah.
Well, we hadn't come up with what the artwork in the middle of the area will be yet, but, you know, so we're figuring that area there would probably be some kind of permeable paver, at least for that, just to
The
break
right
it up.
part, right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's drivable, so it kind of works as a roundabout and
Okay, right,
gives
yeah, that's what I
everybody
was trying
a
to-
definite
Yeah,
flow.
that's what I remember it
Yeah.
from before, but then
Yep.
once you change the color, it
Yep.
started looking like something else, yeah.
It does kind of look like a
No, I
landscape.
know, I get it, though.
Right. So it just kind of gives everybody a direction, you know, to get through the property and
But
kind of
then
separate everything.
The green inner circle, that is some sort of.
That would be some kind of
planting.
landscaping, shovel sculpture, or something like that.
Can I make a suggestion that you might want to work with the Shoveltown Cultural District management group and maybe talk about commissioning a contest for a public art,
Mhm.
get proposals and get some input from them. I think that would really engage the public in the project, and I think that they would be happy to do that.
Maybe it will be a big shovel.
Somebody's gonna submit.
No, you
Yeah.
give,
Yeah.
Ed gets the discretion of deciding what the best
So I have
proposal
now.
might be or not.
Okay.
It's a good
Let me
idea.
just throw one more thing.
Sure.
So, you're gonna have, covered bike storage for the residential units?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point.
I think we would, it's kind of a,
Like to see it.
yeah, I think again, we haven't really got into the details with it, and the architect isn't
I know
with us, but,
the zoning, the police does call for bike storage.
Yep.
but
Yep,
the-
yep, and
the
I-
Is it
bike
covered,
storage-
is it covered bike storage within the district, though?
I
No,
know
it's something we
it's
could definitely
covered, but I'm
consider, yeah.
just suggesting that
I
it
think,
would be nice to see.
yeah, a lot of your, you know, your residential buildings like this now do have a storage area for bikes in, you know, inside.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, we would
Yeah.
certainly look into providing space for that.
And along the same idea, that we know that Easton is looking to increase that. So there is not a sidewalk currently along Washington Street there, is that right?
There is.
There is a sidewalk,
Yes.
oh, okay.
So that's that white line on the.
Yeah, it's, I couldn't tell
Just
from
roads.
Yep.
Okay, so we are tying into that.
And what is,
So
what
we
is the setback for the structures from the,
We're a little more than 20 feet. The required is 25, we're at like 22, 23 feet from Washington Street.
okay.
And what about school bus pickup for children that are in the apartments? Any thoughts on where that might occur, or?
No. Yeah, to be honest with you, we haven't really talked about that.
I would guess it would be on Depot Street.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what
Would
has been
anticipate
observed by
moving,
this
yeah.
board in the past, and I just throw it out there, is a lot of parents prefer to wait for the kids in their cars or
Hmm.
whatever, well, for the bus to show up, and you might just give some consideration as to how
The
that
bus
can be,
drop-off
how that can be
station, yeah.
safely done,
Mhm.
for parents, that might
That's
be.
a great thought.
Yeah,
um,
I mean, if, you know, I mean, just looking at it, if it was on Depot Street, there's
I know, it's not,
some parking there, but it's.
Or maybe a shelter, just
Right.
a canopy.
yeah, that would be nice, it's just, I'm not sure, these days, it seems like every cul-de-sac.
Everybody
you go-
sits inside the
every
car and
si-
waits
every
for the bus to
cul-de-sac
come.
you go by, the
Sure.
people are sitting in their cars.
But it's, I mean, it seems like it would, I mean, I think the school
Maybe they'd
picks
be
it,
in the-
right? But I think it would be
Yeah.
Depot, and yet there's certainly plenty of parking, to
Yeah,
your point.
so maybe that's it.
You
Maybe
don't want it
that's
to be
the
one
answer.
thirty-eight,
No,
obviously.
definitely not.
Maybe it can be at the shovel, you know?
Meet you at the
Maybe
shovel.
that's what it is.
We
Maybe
can
it's a
show, we can show
shelter
the
under
bus company
shovel.
the fire turning, fire
I-
truck turning.
After having conversations with the school operations manager on getting a bus into other locations, I don't think they will enter onto the
I
property.
doubt they will, yeah.
So I would agree, I think that pickup would be on Depot Street. I think having a shelter, I understand what you're saying, Wayne, but I think if you don't put a shelter, then you're not
You
even giving them
definitely-
an option.
yeah.
And really what the whole intent of revitalizing, or a part of the revitalization, again, is making this a walkable community. And
Is it the bus company or the bus, like the school?
It's the school because of the amount of time and pickups they have, that it really starts to, you don't think, oh gee, what's this 2-minute drive-in, but you add,
And they got a lot of pickups, let me tell you.
yeah.
I was stuck behind one the other day, and we
Yeah.
loved every minute of it.
You know,
And everybody has to be picked up. And
So
yeah.
careful, we're on television. So anyway, so first of all, I want to thank Ed and his team, because we've spent a lot of time on this, and going back to when we were writing the bylaw, and I know we're very excited. This is going to be a great project for Easton, for this part of Easton. We're at a meeting the other day that the Economic Development Council had put on, talking about economic development in the Queeset district, and it really comes down. To me, I've always said there's 2 or 3 main parcels, and this is certainly one of them. And I didn't think this would be the first one to go, but I'm psyched that it is. It's great. You've got the growth that's been coming up 123. Now you've got this, and build it, and they will come, and this will start a revitalization of this area, and then even the smaller properties, which are much more limited because they're along the river, or they don't have much real estate, but they'll continue. So we thank you for your investment and your passion for this. So so now I'll put my planning board hat on. And so are you still considering a potential tie-in next door to Kindercare for parking, or is that not sure?
So we've left an option open to do it, and
Yeah, it kind of looks
want
like.
to kind of see what we get
Just see
for
what happens.
tenants
Yeah.
first, but yeah, I would definitely approach him, just so everyone knows what he's referring to. The daycare center next door has a substantial amount of parking, and we were thinking that possibly if we had a nice high-end restaurant that was in that building, that we would speak with them to see if they could do valet parking and put people's cars in that lot at night, and he would obviously make some with his parking lot at night, and it would be a nice service for the restaurant to be able to offer something like that, and that was what Greg is referring to.
Makes sense.
And then I think as we get further into this, the one thing we need to develop at some point, and like sometimes something like this, sort of like we did at Queeset, the sign design kind of ties into the building a little bit, and obviously we're gonna, and the roundabout, for lack of a better word, we have to come up with a better name for that, but that has it's much more defined now. My concern had always kind of been traffic, but I wonder if we still need, as we come, you come from sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, really 5 directions.
Mhm.
So I wonder if we need to formulate some sort of strategy that minimal, but yet just makes it easy, just so people know, so that someone coming from here, so that people know they have to go,
Not
they have to
just
treat it
cut
like a
through.
rotary.
Right.
They don't just start cutting through, because it could be, it's gonna be a lot of foot traffic here, a lot of different uses. You're gonna have a kid from Stonehill, or a school child who drives late for class, and might zip through or something. So I don't know what the answer is for that. But and then building 2, that red area, are you thinking?
Yeah,
like a raised patio. Is that what
Yeah,
that is?
on both of them, both areas, we're looking at a patio.
Sure. Different paving at the roundabout. Just question mark. Looks like you
Yes.
might be doing that. Signage I talked about Kindercare. And Stephanie will pick up at this at some point, but I was looking at the landscaping plan, and
I have, yeah.
you're probably she's gonna want to see more native species and
Is that, yeah.
less cornus cousas. So, just a heads up.
that
Focal
one
point at the
hasn't been
roundabout
identified
fountain, but we already
visibility.
talked about that, and then the rate. So, yeah, so that's how. I mean, I've kind of been.
Oh, they've
Talking
got
to you guys a lot about
there's
this,
quite a bit of native.
So I think, at least from the board standpoint, and this is a great start, to get it out here, and obviously, well, so, I'm assuming, and kind of what Stephanie was talking about before with peer review, not peer review, with the architectural, with the master plan, I'm sure there's gonna be some minor changes to the footprint of this building. Probably not the ones that affect the parking.
Right.
Hint, hint,
We're,
right,
we're
but-
trying to limit it to
Yeah.
de minimis
Yeah.
because
But-
we need to do what we need to do with the utilities
Right,
at this point.
Right, but this, we've kind of vetted this, we've all worked on this a lot, and the buildings are kind of where they make
Right.
sense, so just the folks at home, there was a lot of kind of pre-meeting, which is kind of a good way to do this,
Yeah,
you know.
it's worked
now,
out.
What we really do try at Easton to speed things along. That way, we feel you get more, the town gets more of what they're looking for, and if you're happy, you'll keep doing more projects, right? So, anyways.
Or not.
So.
This will be enough to retire.
That's,
This will be-
that's it. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to chime in?
Sure, I will.
Okay, if you just talk loud and just identify yourself for the record, please.
He's the chair.
Yeah, you can sit here.
Is that close enough? My name's Jessica Chochi, and I reside at 129 Depot Street. On the map, it's noted as the McNamara family. I purchased the house in August 2017, so this was clearly done prior to my purchasing the house. But my home, my plot is, my house is on Depot Street, but it does run the length of that property all the way to the back side. So currently,
Would you like me to point out for you, to be helpful?
sure, if you can.
So this is her lot line here, that runs
Yep.
parallel straight down. So this is the house that's next to the red house, and then she's in the house next
Do you
to
have a greenhouse?
The teal trim?
No, but a greenhouse up
Oh,
there.
the greenhouse, yes, I
Yeah.
have the greenhouse, yes, I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I'm envious.
Yes, beautiful greenhouse, yes. So currently, where that proposed building number 4 is all woodlands, so that's what I look out to at this moment. You know, I very much enjoy living here, but I do have a few concerns. You know, my concern is particularly that woodlands, for a few reasons. I'm curious if there was an engineering study that assures me that the parking, the almost, I guess about 4 acres and 174 spots of parking, will not run off onto my property. Currently, I had a new septic installed when I purchased it, and with the already high water table throughout Easton, I just don't want that compromised. So currently, with a lot of the snow and rain, my yard is very saturated as it is. So I'm just concerned without the woodlands there to kind of help with that runoff. You know, what kind of studies have been made? You know, if not now, when in the future I could see that sort of.
And if I could comment on that, you heard us talking about the peer review and that the applicant's engineer has been talking with Woodard and Curran. They are the town's engineer peer reviewer, and that's what they're reviewing. They have designed a stormwater management plan. It has to comply with the state and the local bylaw for stormwater management. And the peer reviewer ensures that the design as proposed will meet those standards. And that includes no increased peak rate of runoff onto your property.
And I'll be able to see that when that's
Those
complete, or
reports will all be available online. If you aren't familiar, the application is available through our online permitting system. You go to the planning board page, and you will see, you need to scroll down just a little bit, but you'll see a link to the public view for all projects.
Okay.
And all the documents that we are receiving in the office are posted to that system and available to everyone in the public.
Thank you. I do have another concern. Again, being on Depot Street, we've talked a lot about Washington Street traffic, but Depot being a rural road, you know, even now there is significant backup at times. Just recently, Central Street, which is behind us, had a detour because there was some underground work being done, so there was a lot of detour traffic coming to Depot Street. And, you know, the traffic was built up, and so my concern is, you know, a detailed traffic study. When that is complete, I'll look at that, and just to ensure that traffic will not be worse than it currently is, or do whatever we can to mitigate those sort of traffic concerns. You know, things like delivery trucks, emergency vehicles, proposed turning lanes for traffic. And even during construction, one of my concerns is the stabilized construction exit. Where would that be located? You know, there'll be a lot of, you know, heavy trucks coming in and out, so.
If you do go to the website, you'll see the plans, and
Yeah.
one of the plans is a sediment and erosion control plan. It has construction entrances and things like that on that plan, so,
And that's through Depot Street?
yes.
Okay. Again, a personal concern of mine is the buffer between, that building four, correct? So, you know, there is a natural buffer as we see it now, and to me, the landscape plan and the drainage plans don't show any of, it's almost as if my yard will run completely into the back of that building. So my concern is either a fence or even more mature landscape that would, you know, that could possibly go in that location. There is that dumpster on the corner as well, that proposed dumpster, the red, yep. So, visually from my property, you know, going from what I have now to that would, you know, is a little concerning to me. So my concern is additional landscaping and or what concerns, you know, my fellow neighbors as well.
Just right up, we can certainly increase the landscape and all, we can, you know, we could find another location for it, maybe, we'll look at both things, but we'll see if we can find another location close to the building, but certainly additional landscaping on it, and again, you know, the dumpster's not all that high, so it's relatively easy to screen, so.
Okay. It wouldn't be one of those large, like compactor trash, or?
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you move the dumpster somewhere?
Well, that's,
down here?
you know, yeah, we could try to put it, up in that corner, or even, you know, have
Do a
more of a
double.
whole, I guess, dumpster station, we could call it, for the restaurant and for the, and for the houses, so we,
Actually might make sense.
yeah, we can try to do that just to get it away from here,
Okay.
right up against your lot line.
Well, I guess those are
Okay.
the biggest concerns I do
We'll
have,
certainly
so
look
thank
at
you,
both of those.
appreciate it.
I'd just like to, I'm Mark Goggin, I live at 125 Depot Street, right next to Easton.
Property right here.
And just have most of the same concerns that she does, especially with the woodland, you know, as mine would be more on the parking lot itself,
Right.
noise-wise, and the dumpster, I've worked in plenty of restaurants and retail spaces and seeing it, but also smelling it in the summertime, especially with the heat going the way it has been lately, so let's, you know, just push that down also. So I just wanted to say I have most of the same concerns, so. we'll look for that stuff. Thanks.
Sharon Bass in the audience. So listening, I think that's a, you know, good point. Maybe just a little, you know, and maybe, you know, good neighbors make some saying. So maybe
Good fences.
you talk to each other. Thank you. So figure out what the solution is, and then, you know, I know we had an attempt at a site visit at one point, and I was there. I don't, now that we have sort of a definitive plan, do you think we, and especially sort of for this, kind of what we just talked about, I'm almost thinking,
Items like.
what would make sense if we ticked these four, well, we know that front property line is that old stone marker.
Right.
Yeah,
This one,
we tick those three corners and we go out there, 'cause
We can always see what they're looking at.
yeah, because my only
Right.
concern, and I totally understand with the two neighbors about the dumpster, but at the same time, you move it to where those other ones are, now you've got 22 residents, you know, so,
It is,
I don't know, you know, you may have to,
it's certainly less of an impact there than it would be.
but I get over here, you've got a nice space, so it's something to, you know, just something to think about
Yeah.
where.
But a sidewalk would give everybody a better.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, maybe,
That'd be good.
I mean, we'd say, maybe set the date at the next meeting when our two other members are here.
Yeah.
Because I think on this end, we can go pretty quick, but I think we're gonna be treading water a little bit, waiting on peer review, just because of the scope of this. So, and let the snow melt too. So maybe set a date right after our next meeting, do you think that?
Well, could we do the next meeting on the 25th? And then we could get a sense of where, we're gonna have peer review back by that point. We're gonna know where we're at. We'll be able to
Oh, yeah,
converse.
yeah, and then set
And then
a
set
meeting at that
the,
point,
set the meet.
so we can address this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and, you know, site visits are, it's not a public hearing, we just go and take information, and we can't allow, it's not up to us, you know, it's private property, you know, but if, you know, it's not unheard of that abutters have come to some, but that would be between y'all, but it wouldn't be a question and answer, at least with us, you could talk to each other, but at least get a better idea where things are at.
Okay.
But I'll let, you know, I don't wanna speak for Ed, but, you know, that's up to you guys. Yeah, so I guess, so for the 25th, we'll hit stormwater. For me, the main thing is just how we're gonna handle directional signage. You know, that's, and Wayne's thing with the lighting, you know. Those are kind of the main things at this point that I have.
Yeah.
Other than that, we've really, you know, and the landscaping for the native and.
Should we entertain a meeting with you guys informally to talk about the directional? I'm worried about wanting to go back and forth on something, so.
Yeah, you can certainly call Stephanie.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the solution is, otherwise I would
Right.
offer one, but I just think we need something.
We have talked about it internally, and we did discuss it with our traffic engineer, and he was gonna be looking at it and coming up with, you know, solutions, whether it's, you know, it's curbing that would direct everybody to take a right-hand turn instead of scooting right across, you
Yeah.
know, just so the flow, so we have looked at it, so I'm sure we'll be able to come up with something, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, something simple, I think it's gonna have to be some signs, but we don't wanna,
Yep.
you don't want a bunch of them.
Right, but I think curbing and signage just to direct.
And the arrow could be a shuffle. Just tied into the whole thing, so.
You can see it.
It's been, I haven't been able to work for a month with this thing.
Somehow you
so.
have to work the Dean Mill into this, or.
No, we have
or
those
the-
parts.
We have that.
We still have those parts.
We have
Waiting to see that.
I was gonna bring a wheel today, you know, but
Have you seen?
wheel of cheese.
I got a wheel.
Millimeter?
I got one of the wheels, put it in my barn. I'm gonna go back, I'm just holding on to it, you know.
Okay. Because
we-
there
we
there
have talked
definitely is
about-
different, you know, it could be a car that
Yeah.
looks like, you know, or something.
We're trying to tie in some historical pieces from that area to the project.
And maybe even to the, you know, to the restaurants, to the buildings.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, the
have a theme to
entranceways.
it, like a mill.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So, we're all set, right, for tonight?
Actually, I have a question.
Sure.
Jessica's dad, Dan Paquette. Procedurally, what are the next steps, and are the abutters alerted to those processes? And most specifically, her two concerns are obviously stormwater management, and I've noted there's an overflow pipe already designated on her property, so that's gonna be of great concern to us. And the second is traffic. Do you act in advance of any of those final approved reports? It sounds like you're trying to move to approve the site plan so they.
No, yeah, not till we hear back from the peer review. No, you know,
That,
so.
Is the traffic study peer reviewed as well?
I was going to talk with the board about that, and if, whether we think it needs to be or not, that warrants peer review. Again, I haven't had a chance to take a look at it. If we could go back to answer your question, though, the board won't make a decision until our peer reviewer indicates that the project complies with the regulations. That's part of the process, and part of the process is reviewing the traffic plan to make sure that any increase in flow of traffic, which this will generate, and the flow, the circulation of traffic doesn't create a situation. So that's the purpose of this process, is to vet all of that and get answers.
And so you've hired Woodard and Curran to do the engineering, and those reports will be available?
To do the stormwater
Okay.
management review.
And currently, you're not certain you're gonna do a peer review of the traffic. I mean, traffic on a very minor street like that, it'd be hard to argue it's not gonna have a fairly dramatic impact, so that would be of concern to the abutters.
So to answer a couple of questions, we will not be informing you of any future meetings. It's all notified. You got that one first notice. So we're here tonight. We're probably, our next meeting's the 25th, assuming we continue it to that. But it's all available online. Always good to check if it's a weather day or something, or sometimes, you know, wouldn't be, not a bad idea to call the planning department the day of the meeting just to make sure. Sometimes they get continued because peer review didn't get back, or we didn't get a plan in time to review, just to save you all the hassle of coming out here. Yeah, the peer review, that's all public record. It'll be here, it'll be online. You can ask, you know, all the questions you want. And then, I'm not sure if you know, but, you know, Depot Street is about to be reconstructed. I've been to 4 meetings with the state. It's gonna be from 138 all the way to, what's that little street right before
Frost
Frost
Street. Frost Street.
Fox Run.
Fox
Run.
Yeah, Fox Run.
Fox Run?
Oh, it
The
doesn't
Fox
go
Run's
all
on
the
the
way
right,
across
right?
Street.
It's the other one.
It's the other one, it's the other one with a C,
It's
is it?
Cross
But anyways, it's,
It's
no,
Cross
it's not as
Street.
far as Cross Street, it's that,
It's not as
the-
far as
No.
Cross
the
Street.
subdivision right before that Spanish. Anyways, so it's gonna be widened shoulders, sidewalks, turning lanes. Actually, it's gonna be a light is being added at Center Street. They're moving the monument. The monument's gonna slide over. So at the second of those meetings I went to, and this intersection is gonna be completely redone. And so I asked directly. I said, hey, there was a project. When they were talking about, because they had traffic studies, pretty extensive. And that's all available online too from Mass DOT. And I had asked if they were familiar with the fact that a project was going in here and the nature of it, and they had used figures similar to this in their calculation, in the design, the engineering of it. So even just forget this project. I knew if this wasn't happening, Depot Street traffic's gonna improve greatly just from an improved sign and dedicated lanes. So I can't remember a time that we've ever done peer review of a traffic study. I mean, we've done it when we rewrote the zoning on this. We did a master plan 4 years ago where we looked at the traffic in this area quite a bit because we knew this area was ripe to go next. Then when we wrote zoning, we created the village business district 3 years ago, 3 years ago, same thing. And then last year when we created the overlay district for this, we looked at it. So
I think the only time they've done it is for the larger 40B projects.
right, and I think given the experience of the members of this board, which you don't see us all here tonight, but many of us are very familiar with engineering and design. So I think I think we'll be good to go.
And MassDOT still has to
Yeah,
issue road opening permits,
Right.
for our project, so they still have to take a look
Yeah,
at that.
I mean, the state's traffic engineer's gonna go through it too, so. But I think the biggest, effect, or the biggest benefit is gonna be when they redo Depot Street, which is in 2020 construction starts, right? Next summer. But anyways. Did they answer any questions, or is there another one?
Yes, I mean, to the extent you could.
Okay, no, I didn't mean that, did I miss any? I wasn't sure.
No.
So are we ready to make a motion to continue?
Sure.
Motion to continue to the next meeting.
March 25th, yeah, that's fine with us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you.
Quick question, now that it's closed. So if we do the site visit, and any of the butters did want to be participant, how would we let them know when it's gonna happen?
We'll schedule it at the 25th.
Oh, schedule.
Yeah, and then assuming if there's one abutter here, maybe they can
Okay.
yell out to everybody.
Tell two
Or
friends.
they can always, if no abutters are here, no, sure, you can always call Stephanie's office.
Right, just give us a
Yeah,
call.
and all of this stuff is online. If you go,
I'll go check.
you go right through the planning, the board, and you'll just see there's a motion there, so. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for leaving, Paul.
Can we be eighth next time?
Oh, man.
We go last next time?
Do we have minutes out?
You know what happens, Paul? The new ones go last, and then they get bumped up.
The last should be first, the first should be last.
Paul, you leaving this behind for someone?
I was gonna leave that.
It's actually set.
Okay, great.
Suzanne will take that, unless someone else wants it.
Nice to meet you. Nice meeting you as well.
You've got it,
Very
right? You
familiar.
don't
All
need
right,
any more.
meeting
I'm,
minutes,
yeah, I'm very familiar with the project.
February 25th.
Anyway,
Did you hear Cambridge passed a moratorium on cutting trees today?
I heard they were going to,
Cannot cut trees in Cambridge, yeah.
without a permit or not at all?
Not,
would-
unless
yeah,
there's,
some kind
unless
of
it's showing that it's.
An imminent hazard or something?
Page 2.
Page 2.
Third paragraph from the bottom starts with Mr. Strange. Said he would have landscaping, just put like to have had.
Page 2.
Like to have had landscaping. He would have landscaping, he would, oh, no, he would like to, he would like to have landscaping addressed. You have, he would have landscaping to have been addressed. So I just need to say, he would have liked to have landscaping addressed. Yeah, page 2.
Is this 300?
From the bottom.
Is it related to 300?
From the bottom, okay, sorry.
This is February 25th.
Yeah, no, I was looking for the top.
Okay. The one, yeah, third from the bottom starts Mr. Strange.
Would have liked to have. would
Yeah.
have
And
Liked to have. Got it. Mhm. Anything else? I was looking the wrong direction.
Motion to approve the minutes with the change?
Second.
all those in favor? Motion been? Right. Oh, we have a ZBA request for comment. Why don't we do that? Get all the work out.
Oh, yeah, and then the two votes.
Stop using this hand.
Oh, this is a special permit.
Right.
Rubber Drive.
The very last two pages are comments that were online. Last two.
Sounds fun.
Where's it going? That's the one I think.
It's going in one of the,
Do we know which
one
space?
of the spaces at the strip mall. There were
Right,
two
but I'm
open-
just,
two
which
open
space?
spaces.
Couldn't tell which one. 40 and 50, I guess, the ones without names. Not that it matters.
I only see one comment. Or, okay, this is.
So just two?
Can you tell me what this is? Right here?
Yeah.
Says you don't
You
need to
can't
read
read
me.
that? You can't read that?
It's just making my eyes water.
Yeah.
How big is it?
I didn't see how big it was.
There is a class.
It is a map.
Right there.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell where it was
It's
going.
next to the TJ Maxx.
40 and 50 maybe, next to Pet Sense.
Okay, right there.
40 and 50.
Oh, so it's 40 and 50?
Mm-hmm, yes.
So,
They're pretty good sidewalks.
It's a
now,
special
it's
permit.
not-
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's- I was trying to figure out why, oh, because it's a special permit.
Special
Right.
permit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it.
I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be fine. I can't see any reason.
Is there a weight limit on the?
Hey,
Yes, you're too
I'm not even for
big.
me.
You're too big. You're too big.
And,
motion to recommend,
And we don't
unless-
want you to break the other wrist.
I can't bite you.
uh,
Kills me.
Motion to recommend.
Do I hear a second?
You do, I'll second.
All those in favor? Boom, stop. All right. Stephanie,
Okay, we have
zoning
two-
bylaw change?
Right, so, one of the articles, zoning articles,
Recommendations at the end.
I'm just gonna get.
Oh, that's right.
No, that's, oh,
That's okay.
I thought they recycled paper.
Oh, no.
Look at the date on that.
March 7th.
Oh, mine says, I thought it said September '07.
are you?
But I'm just getting a quick one here.
And I'd like 2 separate votes.
Oh, ladies.
Okay.
Yes, 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 thank you.
All right, so, what's the change to the table of uses?
Well, can we do the easy one first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
The compact neighborhood overlay district, as the board is all too well aware, the limitation or restriction to a maximum number of bedrooms per dwelling unit in the district should have been included, which shall be 2, so we've added that, it's the last page.
Okay.
And the reason we
So
include
is
the
that the-
whole section is because it makes it easier for
Oh.
the Attorney General's office to review that.
And we can do that with the thing they had mentioned before about the restricting the number of bedrooms.
2, so.
You mentioned that at the last
That
meeting.
was the interior, yeah, I don't,
Well, we're gonna give it a shot anyways.
yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Some of
shot.
that was on,
kind of the structural
6-6.
interior, and it was,
I know,
and we asked Jay about that,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
at the time, we thought this was included,
right.
so.
Okay,
Yeah, he said it was,
anyways,
Which is,
yeah, he said
yeah.
it was cool.
good.
Right, right, because that was, that comment probably came on the mixed use and
Yeah,
basic
it
commercial
was, but
district.
they were taking
And,
kind
and
of a-
Jay said,
that was sort of a
yeah,
different line of thinking that we had
yes,
in
yes.
the past, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So that's that. And then on the table of uses, the Ely Mawsonary District, which is comprised solely of Stonehill College, and there are only 2 towns that I could find in a Google search who have such a district. It's Easton and some other community. Most do not even have such a district, like an educational district or.
So that's
Ely
all that's in the
Mawsonary.
district now? I thought it was like churches or something too, no? But not
The,
on the map.
it is, so the Ely Mawsonary is educational, non-profit type organizations and agricultural uses. Those are the allowed uses in the district. And it would preclude having a hotel there. And it's very feasible and can be considered to have a hotel in the campus at Stonehill. Similar to UNH has a hotel on campus, UMass has a hotel on campus. Of course, if one were to be placed there, the town would want it to be excluded and be able to realize some revenue from it.
Yeah.
So the proposal is that there be a footnote that in the Ely Mawsonary District, that a hotel could be allowed. So it is footnote number 5 that states, except that a hotel may be allowed by special permit issued by the Planning Zoning Board as a secondary use.
So why doesn't it just say PZB? Why does it have N with a footnote of 5? You know what I'm saying? Like all the other special permits?
Because of the
Is it secondary
motel,
use?
because if you put PZB in the table,
It's as of right,
then it's hotel and motel. It's not by right, it's still a
Oh.
special permit, and I didn't think you were interested in a motel.
Oh, hotel, oh, motel, gotcha.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Now, I just have,
That was a good question, there was
yeah. Do
actually,
they even
yes.
make motels?
Yeah,
I think
well,
so,
they,
yeah.
you folks approved one,
No, I just
right,
have a
on
question
Washington
From the
Street.
50s, it's coming back around again.
we're gonna have a public hearing, but I have a question on.
Yes, and that's what you're voting on is, and Suzanne would like each separate, so Peter, before your question.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just that, the board vote to hold a public hearing.
I thought that the table of uses had more footnotes.
It does,
Oh,
okay, this is for this section, and let's see, I think those footnotes apply only to this section?
So I
No,
like-
number 2 applies. It does, but I just included section E.
oh,
maybe
so
we
that's just
should-
E,
we
I
have
see.
one.
sorry.
Oh, and one, I'm sorry, Peter, these footnotes are footnotes that apply to this section, section E.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And
I
why
get it.
footnote 1 is there is because footnote 1 is carried through in each section of the use table.
Okay, all right. Okay,
So you want a motion to hold a public hearing?
For each one, so you,
All right.
Suzanne wants a separate vote
So-
for each.
I'll do one, Peter, you do the other.
sure.
So a motion to hold a public hearing on amendments to Article 33 zoning, compact neighborhood overlay districts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion passes.
A motion to hold a public hearing for the zoning bylaw change on section 3235, attachment 1, appendix A, table of use regulations.
Oh, second. Sorry.
Any further discussion?
You had a question.
No, just
Yeah.
reducing swelling. Then, people for the last month in town hall realized just ignore this. All those in favor? We did have a second, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm now not stretching, I'm voting. Now I'm back to stretching. This was a night, we don't have to do anything with this, right?
That should show you the date.
This show,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
April 8th.
So,
Yes.
yes.
All right.
Alright.
Motion to adjourn.
Hold it.
No.
There's something else here, I think. Wasn't there something else?
No, you just need to sign your.
Oh, we have a lot of sign.
Drive, we did, chair report, we have
That's a
one.
sign.
Alright, I thought, alright,
That's
who's
it.
gonna bring us home?
Motion to adjourn.
I did, second.
Ooh, he's taking over. He's
I thought you had
forcing you out, man.
That's fine.
All those in favor?
We already seconded.
What do we?